morning, my good people of the internet. Happy to be here with you on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. We are here with you worldwide on Facebook.com and YouTube.com, both /WakeUpCallDT, and on WakeUpCallDT.podbean.com. So however you're connected with the broadcast, we appreciate you tuning in up and down the East Coast, the Midwest, the West Coast, and all around the spinning rock that we call Earth. We appreciate you being here with us. Inside of Monpause, Popcorn.com's What's Poppin', we have our bi-monthly segment every other Tuesday with Christy Salters-Martin, International Boxing Hall of Famer, as well as such a tremendous public speaker and someone who is consistently paying it forward and giving to others. Christy Salters-Martin joining us in Christy's Corner this morning, and we will also be joined by boxing photographer and the owner of PB&J's Lunchbox, our exclusive partner in the Christy's Corner segment. We'll be joined by Pat Orr, as well as our special guest, author and boxing historian, Mark Allen Baker, will be here with us today as well. So we'll be picture in picture, and we'll have Pat on the line with us here as well this morning. And then in hour number 2, Papa Joe will come to us 2 days early as we are in Bowl week, and I'll be heading down to Boca Raton for the Boca Raton Bowl featuring Syracuse and South Florida, two teams that we have covered heavily over the years here on Wake Up Call. So we'll be talking with Papa Joe about Syracuse football recruiting, as well as the Boca Raton Bowl, the NFL Week 15, and stepping into Week 16. So with all of that being said, it is my honor and my privilege to welcome to the show Christy Salters-Martin back on the broadcast, Miss Pat Orr, who's on the phone with us, and to welcome for the first time ever, and it is a true honor and a privilege, as I told him off the air, Mark Allen Baker. To everyone, good morning.
Morning, Dan.
Good morning.
So,
And Dan, by
yeah.
the way, I feel so bad for you that you have to go spend some time in Boca Raton.
Yeah, I've never been there before, but I have some friends down here that I didn't realize how close they were to the bowl game and to all of that. And so they're telling me I got a hotel. I thought it was really nice. They're like, yeah, you don't want to go there. That's not a good part to go
Yeah.
to. So
Yeah.
I'm learning as I go down here, but it's supposed to get warmer. It's actually cool in upstate Florida, I guess I would say. So in northern Florida, it's going to be in the 50s. But as I travel down the coast today, it gets warmer and warmer. So my mom just called me and told me that it's snowing back at home. So, yeah. So Pat, how is the weather out there in the food truck world? How is Syracuse right now?
It's 29 degrees, snowing, light snow. Roads are clear. We're going up to Lemoyne to serve the DECA students today. So they're going to be chilly waiting outside for their food.
Yeah, so I heard that it's supposed to be not the greatest. The thing is we're less than a week until Christmas. And when you're down here in Florida, it does not feel that way. But when you're up at home and it's 30 degrees, you can get a sense for it. Mark, what's life like in your neck of the woods right now? What's going on in your neighborhood?
Well, Dan, it's a little cold this morning, but we had so much rain yesterday. I didn't know whether to continue riding or build an ark. It was just unbelievable. Had over 3 inches of rain here. And I had just left Florida about a week and a half ago, so it was quite the transition for me. So, but it's not snowing. So,
Yeah, and Christy, you're not dealing with snow either. You're in good parts as well. What's life like? You're down south, so I mean, what's life like on the western part of the United States? The Midwestern part, I should say.
We're the Midwest here.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's cool. It's really cool. You know, probably I think it was in the 30s maybe this morning. So and I'm only going to get to 65, I could say only, but it's all relevant where you are. It's after being here and 109, 110, 115 all summer. You know, it's a big transition to now being, in the 30s and 40s.
Yeah, I heard that because I've been to different parts of Texas. I've heard that Texas has that. That we all, from the outside looking in, we all think that Texas is going to be 80 degrees, 100 degrees every day, but that's not the case. There are cold moments in Texas.
Yeah, I mean, a couple years ago we had the ice storm. Really, it wasn't so much the snow; it was the ice. And these people out here have no clue how to deal with ice. They actually thought they could drive on it. So yeah. Thank goodness. Hopefully there will be no ice storms this winter.
Yeah, Pat and I know all about this. Pat, we can drive in ice storms, can't we?
Well, not very well, but we can move. Yeah, I've slid down hills before sideways because of the ice. So, there's certain stop signs you don't want to stop at because you'll end up going down the hill. But, yeah, it's tricky.
Well, here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of Christy's Corner, we're always happy to speak about sports and life. And Christy, you wanted to, you and Pat put together the opportunity here to welcome Mark Allen Baker. And I would love to get your thoughts, Christy, on why have Mark here with us this morning, and what about Mark just really caught you over the years?
You know what? More than anything, as I was making my questions, my list of questions, it's like, why boxing? And I get it, because you could be writing about any sport or anything in the world, but you chose boxing for a lot of your books. And so I think I wanted to know why. And I wanted to know, were you a boxing fan growing up? So that was an easy transition, or is it the characters of boxing? And then another question also, like, because I haven't been around professional baseball players or football players, are fighters different, or are all professional athletes the same? Wacky, and think they deserve way more than they do. So it's just like, I thought that not just me, but everybody out there wants to know the answers, your answers to those questions.
Those are excellent questions. Excellent questions. I started, I actually started writing when I was working for General Electric. So I started writing about hardware and software and computer animation during the early years. What I worked in there actually became Microsoft PowerPoint eventually. They actually spun off a division of the General Electric Corporation. Getting back to your questions, though, when I was a kid, I had a sixth grade teacher who always taught me first off, he knew I was fascinated with history, so he always taught me to question history. And the only way to question it is go directly to the source. So I had a fascination with Jack Dempsey and Gene Tunney. So I took the opportunity back in 1965, that'll age me a bit, to write to Gene Tunney, of all people, who was living in Connecticut at the time. So my first contact with a professional boxer, was Gene Tunney in Connecticut. So I wrote him, and Gene wrote back. So that began a whole transition with me to starting to write to people. I wrote to generals, I wrote to entertainers, everybody. My father played professional baseball in the minor leagues, and his father was a Golden Gloves boxer. So he transitioned his interest from boxing to baseball, and I went from baseball to baseball, but also to boxing, because my father actually played with Rocky Marciano's brother, played minor league baseball. So my dad would tell me stories about him and Louis Macajano going down south and meeting Rocky, and he'd talk about fights and fighters. And my grandfather always talked about Willie Pep. So I was fascinated with the characters. Did I love baseball? Absolutely. And I've written books about baseball, and I've written books about Connecticut history, Syracuse basketball, Ernest Hemingway, all sorts of different things. But I find you hit it right on the head. I find the characters fascinating. And from just visiting Canastota for many years, all the different people we've met over that time period. And I spent a whole day with Willie Pep, for example. And it's just incredible, the characters. And the stories are just completely fascinating, like yours. And I just love the people. And of course, I love upstate New York and Canastota. I lived not far from there for a while, outside of Syracuse. And I love the people of Canastota. Mr. Brophy came into my restaurant 1 year after the International Boxing Hall of Fame started, and asked me to join up with him. And I gave him a hand, and that's where I met Pat and so many wonderful people, and spent years there. So it's the characters and it's the people around the sport that attracted me to boxing.
So let me ask you though, is it all athletes, are they alike? Like, are football players and basketball players, baseball players, do they still have, this is what I see as a fighter, and being at those places that you're talking about in Canastota and just other places where there are a lot of big name champions. I see most of the fighters will take their time and talk to a fan, sign an autograph, take a picture. I don't know the other sports, but you hear these horror stories of Michael Jordan walking off and leaving some little kid crying.
Mhm.
The big superstars not signing for people. And I understand that because then, somebody's going to turn around and sell it. But like, are they different? I mean, are fighters, and we all have stories. Fighters, I don't think any fighter, I don't even know one I would maybe say is normal, whatever normal is. I mean, we all have some kind of crazy motivation, like this is why. This is why I have so much anger in the ring. This is why I wanted to fight to start with. There's always some reason behind the career. Our other athletes in other sports that same kind of motivation, and they just reached out to a different sport.
I find it much different. I mean, when I owned a bar in Syracuse, we had a AAA team there in Syracuse that was a minor league club, AAA club for the Toronto Blue Jays. But those kids came through. A lot of them came through with a lot of college experience and all-American experience. They were used to people, but they didn't have the fascinating story behind what the boxers had. They were accommodating until they got to that upper level, and then they got kind of standoffish and weren't as welcoming, except for the ones that I find the ones that are really superstars. I mean, way up there. Of course, I haven't had an experience with Michael Jordan, but the real big baseball players I've always found very welcoming. They're really like the all-star level. It's the ones who think that they're the all-star level that I have the problem with, who think that they're probably more than they are. But the people that I mean, the baseball Hall of Famers for years, and I went back in the old days to Cooperstown and would talk to a lot of them. They were very welcoming. They were very nice, especially the ones that went through the tough times in the 40s and the 50s. Where Joe DiMaggio was different, no question about it. You never bothered him. But he had a different story to him. He had a different life. He was in the public eye far more than someone like a Carl Hubble or even Harmon Killebrew or somebody like that.
So with fighters, we also see most of the elite fighters. They're never traveling alone. They have this entourage, and now that to me the entourage has gotten out of control. I don't see that with other sports athletes. I'm sure they have to have a security person. The big guys. They have to have a little bit of a team. But do they have an entourage with them, or do they just travel with their teammates?
Well, they travel with their teammates. Most of them travel with their family. But I haven't seen any with a huge entourage. I mean, I run into baseball players in Florida all the time. People like Frank Thomas, some of the guys on the Cincinnati Reds, the coaches, they never have an entourage. They just deal with the public, and they deal very well with the public. And maybe it's different. Maybe it's just the Florida atmosphere. I don't know, but I have not seen any ball players travel with the entourage like the boxers have. And that's a little, and I mean, and an entourage can be intimidating to people, especially to boxing fans. Some people just don't seem approachable, unfortunately. Not like the old days where you and I could go up and talk to an Ike Williams or Bob Foster or Billy Conn, people like that. Not like those times. No.
Billy Conn, the boxing banker, right?
Well, he's the man from the Steel City, for sure, right? Billy Conn. But he was at Canastota the first year. I know Pat probably remembers that. Ike Williams was there. Jimmy McLarnin showed up. There's a lot of people that showed up in those early years that, we only had for a short period of time. Jersey Joe Walcott, people like that, who were with us for such a short time. And I wish I had sat down with them and talked to them the way you and I had a chance to talk to them at Graziano's years later, where we could have breakfast and sit down, where I could sit down and talk to Bo Jack or Archie
Right.
Moore or Bob
Yes.
Montgomery and we did. And we had a wonderful experience there with those individuals. But I mean, and they were incredible. They didn't need an entourage. Archie Moore was Archie Moore. So you didn't need anybody around him to convince him of that.
Mark, when you look
And
at,
those were the days.
go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say what people moving forward won't realize with the Boxing Hall of Fame, they will never have that same connection like we had with the fighters, able to go to Graziano's every night and sit there and listen to stories and just be in awe of Carmen Basilio, Gene Fulmer, Willie Pep. I was so fortunate to meet those guys and Archie Moore, to hear their stories, just to hear them talk. It doesn't even matter what they're talking about, but just to be in their presence. Hagler, Hearns, all those these young guys don't know what they're missing.
No, they don't. I mean, the stories are fascinating. That's why I like doing what I'm doing. And I've had a lot of people come up to me, especially here in Connecticut, and ask some of the same type of questions you just asked. Well, Mark, I mean, why would you spend your time writing about Tony Canzanieri or Abe Attell or Lou Ambers? The reason is nobody, they're fascinating individuals to me, and nobody knows who they are. And I always go back to the fact that people like Muhammad Ali, and deservingly so, will have hundreds of books written about him, maybe hundreds of biographies at some point. But Lou Ambers or Willie or Battling Nelson, they're not going to have that level of interest because they don't. Their story's not out there, and that's what I tell fighters now: get your story out there. Your story is important. All these people are fascinating. Battling Nelson could be a movie tomorrow. Any screenwriter, if I approached them with a book, would say, "This is fascinating, but it's almost unbelievable." I mean, true stories
Right.
are better than fiction, I think.
Absolutely.
Pat, do you
Dan, you had a
have
question?
Pat, you have a question for Mark?
Um, Mark, you're right. 1990 was like an incredible year to be able to see those champions up on the stage. The old timers, always a pleasant conversation with them. Listening to their stories was incredible, and just seeing the way they interacted with like fighters that they had huge fights with, and that they still could communicate and be friends afterwards. Like Carmen Basilio and Willie Pep. I know there's that famous Carmen Basilio picture where he's being held up and Willie Pep's knocked out in the foreground, and he used to take that picture off his wall and put it behind the couch when Willie came to visit, and put something else up. That's respect that you won't probably ever see now.
I think that was Jake, right?
Shove it in his
That
face.
was
So
Mata.
it was a whole different kind of respect back then, and it was really cool. But Mark, I'd say that you've seen some pretty incredible stuff in the boxing world, but also the rest of the world. The books you write are incredible, and it's like an honor to have you on here today.
Well, thank you, Pat, very much. It's an honor to be with all of you. But trust me, believe me. I mean, Christy Martin, I have my Christy Martin favorite stories. Pat, I have my favorite stories with Pat. Is so genuine and wonderful to be around. She always has. She has that Canastota charm, which I love, And she knows how many people I respect in that town, especially those associated with the museum. But the people in the early years, I know Pat remembers this. I was always blown away by not just the guests that we knew about, but the ones who happened to show up and were just walking around the average person didn't recognize immediately, but someone like myself or the people on this show would. I remember the first time I saw Billy Seuss just walking around, Paul Pender, the list goes on and on and on of individuals that would just walk through and you're like, well, that's so-and-so, and I can't believe who this is. And can you see that guy over there? I mean, it was just wonderful. I mean, there's so many good stories and so many neat things that you find out about people there. It was just, I can't thank everybody there enough over the years for the memories, especially the Brophy family, all of them, the extended family, and that includes all the people that work at the museum too. And they're just incredible individuals, and Pat's one of them.
Well, Mark, as you look at
Like you, I love Canastota so much. At one time, back in the '90s, I'm like, no, I want to move here. I want to live here because everybody was just so awesome, and the entire town comes out that weekend to support the Boxing Hall of Fame and it make everybody feel at home. And I was like, man, this is how I want to feel every day. I want to wake up every day and actually walk on the street and people say hello to you and be nice. I mean, whether they know me or not, they were just nice people. And yeah, I loved it. I absolutely loved my time in Canastota.
And Christy, that was sincere too. That wasn't made up. I can tell you from the heart, being on that, there's so many committees and working my way through the museum. That is a sincere love for the people that are there. They're welcoming because they care. They're your neighbor. They're just wonderful folks. They're willing to buy a cup of coffee, sit down, have breakfast with me, talk to me. They admired. They just opened the whole town to everybody, and it was just an amazing thing. It was like Cooperstown was in the old days. I mean, it's not so much like that now, but in the old days, it was like that, where you could walk down the street of Cooperstown and here comes Joe Cronin, or here comes Mickey Meow or Willie Mays. I mean, it was totally different back in the old days. And Canastota still has that.
Mark, for you, looking back to being born in Binghamton, as well as going to school at FM and Oswego State, when you go back to those upstate New York and central New York ties, what do you reflect upon? What do you remember? What do you appreciate from the come up of the story that has become Mark Allen Baker?
Well, boy, that's first off, Fayetteville Manlius was incredible. I had heard a lot. I had moved from Virginia Beach, Virginia to Fayetteville Manlius School District in Manlius, and I had heard stories about this school, but I wasn't sure if they were true or not. Well, long story short, I graduated Fayetteville Manlius with 14 scholarships. So I guess it was well worth the time. Ended up going to the State University of New York because my father wanted me to have a very well-rounded education. He was a smart man. And there, I took advantage of everything I possibly could. I in charge of the concert board, was one of them. And we brought, myself and just three other people brought everybody from Billy Joel to Bruce Springsteen to Bob Seger, Peter Gabriel, the Outlaws. And I did Steve Martin's last coffee houses in a little coffee house setting while he was also hosting the Tonight Show at that time. So I met a lot of entertainers, booked a lot of great shows, and the people who remember me from that time remember me as more of a music promoter. And I did write a nice book on music memorabilia for Krause Publications, very thick, about 800 pages. And that it landed me a gig on VH1. I actually co-hosted a show on VH1 for a year and a half with Howard Kramer from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But then I learned quickly that nobody watches TV on Saturday at noon. So we only lasted about a season and a half. But to get to the root of your question, every place that I went to gave me opportunities. But I took advantage of those opportunities, and I had a wonderful support system with friends and family. Because you don't get anywhere, if I have gotten anywhere, without friends and family. And that's the same now. I can only write because I have some wonderful friends here in Connecticut, because I got involved. People like Johnny Callis, and crying out loud. I mean, when I got involved with the Connecticut music scene here, it was like I would walk in these rooms, and I remember going to the annual induction for the first time and seeing the people saying, "Oh my God, there's judges, there's referees, there's Hall of Fame trainers, there's boxers." I mean, I couldn't believe how many people I was seeing. And the level of professionalism in all of them was really extraordinary. And that, again, getting engaged, work with your community. I'm active here in the community. I sat on a town board. I work with our food pantry, very close with the food pantry, donating organic food every year. But you got to engage with your community. You got to love your neighbor, and you got to love the people around you. And I've been so blessed. Everybody, all of you, they've crossed my path. I mean, I couldn't be more grateful. I just could not be more grateful for everything.
And, for you to have the story that you've had, and then you tell the stories of other people, the behind the scenes story. If we told the story of Mark Allen Baker, what do you think that book would look like? What would that movie essentially look like, with you having so many stories that you've told? If we flipped the script and turned it on you, what would that spotlight create for us?
Well, it would create a vision of how I see other people. Because Christy Martin, I sat in an audience. This is going to bring tears to my eyes here now. and listen to you talk in Canastota, doing one of those chats that they have, and you were telling your story. And I'm gonna choke up here saying this, but I had tears coming down my eyes listening to you talk. And then I'm like, wait a second, I'm at the Boxing Hall of Fame. I got to be careful here not to show so much emotion. I looked around the room, and every guy on my row was holding back the tears, listening to your story. And the story of Mark Baker would be the story of people like Christy Martin, who are so inspiring. These are the people who motivate you, and the people that I write about. And Willie Pat, Battling Nelson. Battling Nelson was a rags to riches to rags story. He went from visiting Teddy Roosevelt in the White House to dumpster diving for his meals. I mean, that's the extraordinary transition this man went through. And the reason I got turned on to Battling Nelson was through the Boxing Hall of Fame. I didn't know too much about him. I was writing a book about boxing, and I picked up an autobiography, and it ended in 1908 when he's at the White House. Well, the man died. The man died in 1954. What happened to him? That's the story I wanted to bring out. And that was the fascination with Nelson. With Willie, Pap, it was different. With each of these individuals, it's different. Lou Ambers. Lou Ambers was a boxer who had a spiritual advisor. A spiritual advisor. How many fighters these days have a spiritual advisor? You know, he killed a man in a ring. He killed Tony Scarpati in the ring. And he went to a spiritual advisor. He worked with him, and he brought it, and he helped Lou get over this. But that's a fascinating story of a wonderful family man who was deeply religious and saw a different side to boxing. And that's what I like about it. So the story of Mark Baker is the story of all these individuals, and the little stories and the caveats that I can bring out with my work.
Awesome. Thank you, Mark, for the positive words. But I wanted to say to you that you said something, and this is what I hope we're doing. You said something that you have no idea, just made the light go off of my head. You said you were explaining how you have to be engaged. I really am shy. It is hard for me to even be on this morning, but to go out there and introduce myself and to make stuff happen. But hearing you say this, it was like ding, 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 Christy, you've got to start doing it. You've got to go out there and like put yourself out there more. And so, hopefully we help each other, right? It's sometimes you say something that you probably had no idea that was going to make those bulbs go off in my head. When you said that, you were just clearly talking about what makes you work, how you tick. But it really hit a nerve for me. So thank you for that as well.
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, you were at the Connecticut dinner and you saw people like Shelley Vincent, who I know was in awe of you. I saw her. I saw her look at you, and I know how much you meant to her. And it was an honor having Shelley there and to be inducted with Shelley, because she's a wonderful woman. She really is, in so many different ways. And I was so proud of the group of all of us there that night. I wish more people were there to get the buzz of the atmosphere, the feeling of all these wonderful people around. But it was a nice night, and you're right, it's hard. You are shy. I understand that, but you've come out because you realize just how important what you have to say is to other people. And I thank you for it. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Christy, I don't know that I can ever say that I have seen you as shy on this show. And I don't know if I can ever say that I've seen you shy when you care about something, when something matters to you. So when people hear that, they hear that background, it probably wouldn't make sense to some people that have seen it, because you've been so open, you've been so honest, you've been so giving of your time and giving of your story. How do you, when you kind of go home at night and you relax and you take that deep breath, how do you reflect on the fact that, you allow yourself to be so vulnerable, so open to the world? In order for you to make the change that you're seeking to make, you have to let everybody essentially see you with no bars, with no walls, with nothing in front of you.
It's hard, you take that deep breath, and it's a lot like being at those first press conferences with Don King, and DK would give me a little elbow and Christy, go out there and tell him how you're gonna knock him out, baby. And so, I just morphed into that person. And really, so maybe when the lights come on, I can fly into Christy Martin. But the truth is, behind the scenes, Christy Salters is very and has always been very shy and not self-confident. The other one, I'm a Gemini. So there's the two of me, right? The good and the bad. And that bad one, she'll do and say just about anything. But who I truly am is quiet, reserved, and I just want to help other people. And that's why another thing is I said from my hospital bed that God left me here to help other people. And I feel like, Chris, you got to take that deep breath, because if God left you here for this. And so if you want him to keep leaving you here, you have to go out there and share your story and talk about domestic violence. Just talk about drug addiction. There's so many things. And again, you never know, that one little sentence that's going to register with that person. It's going to give them just that little umph to get over the hump that day.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah, and as we look at kind of everything we've spoken about this morning, and going into some of the questions that Christy had for you, Mark, do you have, when you go through those interactions and making those connections and telling these stories, do you get pushback if you're looking to really get into the thick of things and know the things that nobody knows, and get into the roots of these stories and who this person really is? How do you make that connection? How do you show them that it's a safe place and that they can trust you? And do you get pushback when you are trying to really get to the heart of everything?
You do get it. You do get it, Dan. There's no question. I try to walk a line a little bit. I've been criticized. First, I write in my biographies are for an academic publisher, McFarland. So they're not Simon and Schuster. I don't have free reign to wax poetically about one fight. I have to be very detailed. I have to have sources, at least 3. I try to get 3 for everything. And sometimes, and this is where, and I think it may be even a downfall to some extent, there are some things I just don't bring up. If I find something out, say I push at somebody and I find something out, and I have found out something about just about everybody I've written about, I may not touch on it because I'm afraid to hurt somebody. I'm afraid, and Willie Pep, when I wrote the Willie Pep book last year, I'm here in Hartford. I ran across some people who had questionable interactions with Willie. And because of it, I pulled back a little on my manuscript because I was so afraid of hurting the families if I said something that could strike a chord. Even if it's true, even if I know it's true, even if it's in a newspaper, it doesn't mean I have to cover it, because I want to be sensitive. Because in Willie's case, I sat down and knew him well enough that I knew how he wanted to be represented, because I told him a long time ago, I'm going to write a biography about you. Well, make sure you do it this way, make sure you do it. And later on, I heard from some of his friends that he wanted himself to be projected in a certain way. And I wanted to stand by his wishes. So if you look at the book, it's Willie being Willie. It's not Willie all torn apart, scarred up, swollen eyes. It's nothing like that. It's something that Willie's great grandkids can pick up and be proud of. And so I'm always conscious about that. I've actually written books where I don't have a single picture of any boxing books without a single picture of anybody hitting anybody. And there's reasons for that. I want to present a positive view of the sport. I really do. I don't want to, it's not all blood and guts, and I don't want to over romance it. I don't want to over romance it. And I don't want to bring in underworld figures and exaggerate them to try to sell a book. I just don't care to do that. It's not important to me. Integrity is important, and delivering a good product. And it pays off, because I've heard from a lot of the families. I've heard from a lot of families who enjoy my book and enjoyed the slant that I took about it. And a great example is the night of our dinner, Christy, in Connecticut. I heard from the family of Tony Canzoneri, and saying how much they enjoyed my book because of the way I presented him. And that's the biggest honor, is when the family members contact you. And I've had contact with just about everybody I've written about. In some cases boxers, in some cases non-boxers. For example, the Hemingways. I know a lot of the Hemingway family because I wrote a book on Hemingway. But I've always had that fine line of how are you going to present him? How are you going to present these people in a way that they would be proud? I'm writing a biography. I've got to remember that. I'm writing a biography. It could be Lou Amber's only biography. So I want to make sure, is this Lou? Am I presenting the real guy? And that's important to me. It really is.
It's incredible. And
I'm
before,
sure that athletes will appreciate that because so many times, it's that new revelation. It's that, let me say this, and as you said, you're doing everything factual, checking facts at least 3 times. So many times somebody gets half a story and runs with it, and they add their own little bits and pieces, and it comes out to nothing like the actual happenings.
Exactly.
So I'm sure
and Willie's a great example. I mean, he had a lot of strange encounters. He had a lot of fights that were questionable. He had a lot of ties with people that were questionable. So I had to be careful. How am I going to present this? And how am I going to do it? How would Willie want it? I used to even, I knew him well enough that I felt I knew his sense of humor. So I tried to even follow that same way, but I also had to be careful not to insult anybody. So it was a dance with him, not so much with someone like Lou Ambers, where I'm writing about Catholicism. So I had to explain a lot of elements of the Catholic Church in my book with Lou Ambers. But it's interesting. The characters are fascinating to me.
Living in so many different worlds, Mark, what kind of brings about a story that you want to tell? Like you say, you speak about, you're writing about Catholicism, you have the Hemingway story and telling a story that is such a different road than boxing. Then you're in the boxing world, then you're speaking on Syracuse. How do you kind of decide the stories that you want to tell, the places that you want to go? Because one thing that I never liked hearing from people growing up, and I live this way to this day, is that you have to just be good at one thing. You have to just live in one place. You got to do one area. You got to stay in one lane. You don't. The whole highway is there for you, Mark, and you've been able to drive on different lanes and do different things and tell different stories. So how do you decide what you're going to tell, and what's it like to live in so many different worlds?
It's been a lot of fun. It's been different. It's been a lot of fun. Fortunately, I've been exposed again to a lot of different individuals. Let's take Syracuse, for example. Here I had a sports bar in Liverpool, New York, and individuals are walking in the bar. One of them happens to be Paul Seymour, who used to play for the Syracuse Nationals. And he knew I was a writer. I wasn't a good writer at the time. I still don't think I'm at that level, but I enjoy what I do. And I was so clouded by just my own business world that I didn't listen to him enough, but he would always stop me and said, Mark, when are you going to write a story about the Syracuse Nationals? They won the 1955 NBA championship. It's a great, great story where this is Syracuse, Mark, Dolph Shays, myself, and he went on and on with all the different players. And I said, Mr. Seymour, if I ever get an opportunity, I will. And knowing him and the way he treated me, and he would bring me over while he was sitting in his bar stool and say, let me show you how, Bob Pettit used to box me out. Let me show you how he used his elbows and how I fought around him. And Mr. Seymour intrigued me so much that I said, I promise, Mr. Seymour, sometime I'm going to write a basketball book about the Syracuse Nationals. And I did, and I really enjoyed it. And I thought so much about him. And I thought so much about Syracuse. Imagine what it was like in the 1950s when Syracuse had 220,000 people in 1950s, something that it has half that now. And how people used to go downtown and celebrate downtown. And people used to take the train from Binghamton up to see the Syracuse Nats at the Onondaga County War Memorial. Intriguing stories that even cross over, Dan, in some ways. I found out that Lou Gehrig had a basketball team and played in the Syracuse Armory. I don't think a lot of people even knew that. Lou Gehrig, the Iron Horse of all people. And so, I mean, everything kind of falls together, though. And my interest in Hemingway was through boxing. So here I am. I get invited to go speak at the Hemingway Festival in Key West, one of my favorite places in the world. And every chairman of every English department is there talking about Ernest Hemingway. And I'm a big Hemingway buff, and I have a lot of Ernest things, his actual things. And I get invited to lunch. And I had to look them all in the eye and say, I would love to go, gentlemen, but I already have a commitment. And they said, well, where are you going? I said, I'm going up to Blue Heaven, which is up the road a piece. And I'm having lunch with all of Ernest Hemingway's living sparring partners. All his sparring partners that went to his house when he had a ring set up where the pool is, by the pool at the Hemingway house. Yeah, and when you're down there in Key West, and it's just a great story. So all his sparring partners are telling me, well, Ernest did this, and he had a great right, or he had a lousy left, and we would box, and you should see some of the guys that would drop by. I heard some great stories, and I actually got one of them to write an introduction to a boxing book of mine, of what it was like to box with Ernest Hemingway. And a lot of them, I mean, they made their money rather than fishing. They would go over to box with Mr. Ernest for some good money, some good coin, as they would always tell me.
That's incredible. I can't picture Ernest Hemingway, but I mean, like, I feel like that's the thing that's going to sit in my head now forever.
Gene Tunney actually boxed him, and well, Dempsey tried to talk Tunney not to box him. He said, don't spar with him because he's going to want to take a shot at you. And Dempsey wouldn't spar at him because he aggravated Dempsey. But Tunney had a longer fuse, so Tunney decides he's going to spar with him, and Ernest hit him a little too hard, and Tunney hit him with a right shot that came within, I was told, within like an inch and a half of just completely decking Hemingway, putting him right in the face. And he warned him then. He said, don't ever do that to me. Don't ever take a cheap shot at me, because I'm going to come back at you. And that story was a great story. I wish I had known that story when I wrote to Gene back in the old days, but I didn't. But it's fascinating stuff. So all my worlds kind of mingle. They all kind of intertwine, and I love it. I really do, because it can bring me insights into other things as I'm writing, and it's neat. It's really enjoyable.
Well, it's time for us to get into rapid fire, as we are here with Christy Martin, International Boxing Hall of Famer, as well as boxing photographer and owner of PB&J's Lunchbox on 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York. Fantastic food, and even the traditional favorite dishes have a little bit of a tweak to them. That's Pat Orr's special way of going about it. I call it the special sauce, but there's a lot of different special sauces that she has. So Pat Orr with not only boxing photography, but with PB&J's Lunchbox, and she's on a truck today when it's whatever it is, 39, 36 degrees outside, and author 39, yes. So I took that 49. Oh, okay. I was gonna say I took the lower number, so now I feel better that it's a balmy 49 degrees in Syracuse, New York. And author and boxing historian Mark Allen Baker here with us this morning as well. We do something on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora for many years called Rapid Fire, and we bring it into Christy's Corner. And we're going to go a round table here. So we're going to go one way, and then we'll come back the next. And so, Mark, because you are our special guest today, you're going to start the train, and you get to ask Christy the first question.
Christy Martin, who became your mentor as a boxer?
It's a really good question, because it's crazy. As most people that know me, they know that Jim Martin kept me very isolated from so many people, basically everybody. So unfortunately, I mean, he's the one that taught me about boxing, both the business and the boxing skills. But as like a favorite fighter, I was a Tyson fan. I was a fan of Chavez. And then this is the craziest one. This was who I was really a fan of first, Camacho. And our styles are so opposite, but I thought it was cute. And you know, he's flashy and arrogant and all those things. So I feel like I took a little bit of Camacho. I hopefully took a little bit of Tyson and Chavez and blended it together to be who I was in the ring. But yeah.
because we have Mark here as a special guest, we're going to go back and forth with Mark so that everybody gets an opportunity to put you on the hot seat and you them the other way around for you, Mark, as well. So, Christy, you get to go back to Mark for the next question.
Mark, I think my question would be, who of today's fighters do you think has it? Who is going to be somebody that we, in 10 or 20 more years, 30 more years, the boxing fans are going to look back at this era of fighters and say, oh, he could have survived with those old timers. Who do you think has it?
Great question. It's funny you mentioned that because I had this conversation a little bit with Johnny Callis not long ago. And we were talking and we both agreed. The gentleman that I can see in that position is a gentleman by the name of Vasily Lomachenko. I really think he could fit. I just call it. I know some people are saying, well, maybe he didn't do this, maybe. Trust me. I mean, when we look back, you're gonna look back at him and say, wow, he's definitely was a force. I really like him. I like his footwork, his balance, his moves, I just like a lot of them, his jabs, everything. And so Vasily Lomachenko is the one that comes to mind immediately for me.
Cool.
I like that. Pat, what's your question for Mark?
Mark, how about, what was your most incredible experience with a boxer during Hall of Fame weekend?
I got two come to mind. The first one was I was working a table in the pavilion for Ed. This was in my chairperson days, which Pat will remember. And, actually, there's a couple, but I'll mention this one. The gentleman was walking around all the tables asking very specific questions, looking for photographs of very hard to find boxers and very, very unusual fights. And so they kept sending them to they finally sent them to my table and said, you got to talk to this guy over here because he'll know what the heck you're talking about. And I said, okay. So I introduced myself and he was asking me some questions and he was very in depth with the turn of the century boxers. I said, if you'll excuse me, sir, can you tell me your name? And his name was Jack Kearns Jr. Jack Kearns, if that rings a bell, if anybody knows Mr. Dempsey, Mr. Jack Dempsey. And he told me a story. And this has a little bit to do with boxing. And we were going around, we talked a lot about boxers. He said, Mark, you'll never guess what I have in my basement. And my basement just got flooded. We were drying it out. I forgot that I have a trunk. And you might know this. On the trunk, there was initials stenciled. And he says, see if you can figure this out. The stencil says W.E. on the outside of the trunk. That's who it belonged to. Someone associated with boxing, Mark. You might know this. Gosh almighty, I tried so hard to figure out who that person was, and I couldn't figure it out. I said, Mr. Kearns, forgive me. I can't think of a fighter or someone associated with those initials. He said, that trunk, Mark, is loaded with belongings by a man who is a boxing referee. His name was Wyatt Earp.
Wow.
And that was his trunk. It was loaded with old stuff. And I started thinking, I'm like, you're right. Wyatt Earp was a boxing referee. And somehow his father got a hold of this trunk with all of Earp's stuff in it. And to this day, I don't know whatever happened to it. Can you imagine that? What might be in that trunk? That'd be something you'd see on, Pickers or some kind of TV show. And that's kind of the most unusual. I think that's probably the most memorable, Pat. I really think so.
Wow. Mark, we're going to have to keep you here for the rest of the day today. We have things to work through. So you're going to have to stick around with us. Pat, what's your question pardon me, Mark, what's your question for Pat?
Pat, you've been around so many people and so many wonderful boxers and people around the fight game. What were the two most interesting individuals where when you took their picture, you kind of had butterflies, had the camera and you were just so hoping that you would get that one shot? Who are the two people that you can think of that gave you that feeling where you're saying, oh gosh, I'm nervous. I hope I can get the shot?
I'd have to say the first one would be Tyson Holyfield when Holyfield knocked Tyson down. I was
Okay.
on scaffolding behind the last seat in the MGM, and all of my photographer friends up there were eating popcorn, drinking beer, didn't even have their camera up to their face. And I was the only one shooting, and I was like, oh, Tyson's going down. Popcorn was flying, beer was flying, people trying to get their cameras. It was already too late. But being that I was from Syracuse and I was in Vegas, I had to wait until I got to Syracuse to develop the film, because back then it was film. And it was nervous and that. And then when I developed the film, my boss looked at it, he goes, holy shit, I think you got a great shot here. And that was probably the one that I sold the most of. Like Mark Ratner was the boxing commissioner, and he bought like 4 or 5 of them for people. And that because people were in the background, seeing Mike Tyson going down. Other than that, probably any Arturo Gatti fight.
Oh, yeah.
Back in the day, just waiting to see what you got after a fight, because there was just so much action. And it was definitely an incredible wait when it was filmed and not being able to see them, and you actually had to make pictures and hope that you made it. Those were probably the best. And then after that, it was all Christy Martin fights. There was so much action in them, it was crazy.
Wow.
But I at least got to see the picture and the digital and stuff, so it made it a little easier. But I would say those 3 right there were probably the most anticipated pictures for me to look at.
Fabulous. Thank you.
I like that. Mark, my question for you, what's next? With all the stories you've told and everything that you've done, what's the next project?
Well, my wife's going to kill me for saying this. I've got tons of ideas and binders on shelves. And I've promised some people that I would do something with these. I got some wonderful baseball material, a couple volumes that I'm working on. It's all exclusive stuff. I was smart enough when I was young to get exclusive interviews with a lot of the players who are now past. And I promised them I would put a book out, and I've got that book, and it's really a whole set of books that I'm working on. And I've got everything I've got some literature book type books that I want to write. I got a Civil War book that I would like to put out if I can get some time. Obviously, I'm doing more boxing books, I hope. And I've been asked to do a lot here in Connecticut. And I bounced back. I've done a couple of Connecticut books. I did a Connecticut boxing book that shows the history of Connecticut fight game. And I'd like to do more on that and embellish more individuals like that I didn't touch on enough in the book, like Lou Bogash and Maxie Rosenblum, people like that who are from Connecticut that I didn't do enough on. But the answer is, Dan, I don't know. I just hope I live long enough to get through this stuff and get it done. I really do.
Well, I'm sure that, listen, God is good. You've done a lot of great things, so I'm sure you will have plenty more stories to tell, and those stories will be able to be told. What is your final question? You get the final question, so what is your question for me?
My final question is to you, Dan, and your role, and your multifaceted role. You meet a lot of people, a lot of intriguing people, and a lot of people that you probably are a little nervous talking to. Who's the one person that you met that has been the biggest motivation for you in your position?
Oh, that's interesting. That's an interesting question. There's a lot of people that I've had the opportunity to speak. I do realize that I've tried to be better on sleep and going to bed before midnight. And I've also realized the best conversations of people that really build trust with you happen at 12 o'clock and 1 o'clock in the morning. And I was on one of those calls last night, and I think the biggest thing is building the trust. It's building there, and you probably can attest to this, Mark. Of all the stories that you tell, there's all these other things that people entrust in you that help you to understand the landscape, but also things that you can't just, run out and tell. And I think that, the background of everything that I do is even more beautiful to me, the things that have come to know and understand is even more beautiful than what you get to put out there, because you've built this trust and you've built these connections and you've built these roads with people that you can go up and down on and learn so much. And so I think some of the best stuff is the stuff that you can't even tell directly, but can help you have context to why you do what you do and how you understand and interact with the people you interact with. But I would say my favorite part of the job is the stories, is building the trust, is getting to know the people. But as far as to answer your question of, what's the one that really had that influence on me or really pushed me, I guess I could go a lot of different places, but one of the places that seems more than right for me to go to is Floyd Little. And I mean, Floyd to me is larger than life. I remember when they said Floyd was here, in my head I was like, he's not alive. Like, he couldn't be alive. This man is like the ghost of Christmas past. Like, he couldn't be physically in front of you where you can like give him a hug or hold his hand and shake his hand, be around him. And Floyd and I met many years ago at Syracuse when he came back. The first thing that he ever said when I was first thing I remember him saying was when we were in a room with him and there was like 3 or 4 of us around him. And he said, "Your word is the most valuable thing you own. If you keep it, you have worth. If you don't, you have no value." And I never forgot that he said that to us. And then fast forward to, I was going through a really hard time. I was working at a radio station. I trusted the people that I had there, and they're like, "Oh, don't sign a contract. Don't worry about it. We got your back. Like, if you do what you're supposed to do, you'll be good." And I'm always a person that signs a contract. And I didn't sign the contract. And then, after I did everything I was supposed to do and more, and I brought to them a new contract and with everything that they had promised, and I wrote it all out, they laughed in my face and they said, "Have a good day." And so I was making little to no money. I was on the air for 4 hours. They were trying to pay me $8 an hour. I had raised $30,000. They gave me $3,000 of those $30,000. I could have gotten food stamps. At that point, I was living with my grandmother. I was taking care of her. She had fallen and she was in her 90s. Best person I know to this day. And I decided to start my own business. And I went to a few people to talk to about it. I went to my mother, I went to my father, I went to my grandmother, and I went to Floyd. And
Wow.
I sat in Floyd's office, and we had a conversation that we recorded for 45 minutes, but the rest of the 2-hour conversation that we did not record is something that kind of just went into my head, went into my heart, stuck with me forever. And the biggest thing that stuck with me is when he looked at me, he was sitting in the chair, and anybody that knew Floyd knew that he would get loud and then he'd get really, really quiet. And he's the only person in the world that I've ever had that experience with, where he had such a unique way of really getting you to hear him. And he was on the phone. We had stopped recording, and I walked out of the room. I came back in the room, and he looked at me, and I thought he was still on the phone, so I didn't want to interrupt him. And he said, "You're going to be all right." He said, he's like, people come in this room. He said, "I see people, you see people all the time." He's like, "Some people have an aura." He's like, "Some people got it, you can see it, some people don't." And he said, "You got this aura, and it's around you." And he said, "You could just tell when someone's got that, it's going to be successful, when they got that." He said, "You got that. You're going to be all right. You're going to be successful." He's like, "I can see it. I can see it in you."
Wow.
And that started an 8-year friendship before he passed away, which still lives on to this day, and I have no idea how many years it is now. But in my studio when I'm at home, and forgive people that are watching and listening that I've told this story to before, but I have there's a book that he signed that he did, and so I have his book, which he took out of his drawer and gave it to me. I think it was that day, or it was one of 2 days that I had been in there. And he signed the Denver Broncos hat that I have. And those sit at eye level every day in my studio. And it's kind of like a high Floyd. But I've never forgotten him. I told him he was one of 4 people that at a crossroads where I had 27 cents in my pocket, $103 in my bank account, no home of my own, taking care of my grandmother, he was one of 4 people at that crossroad that told me what I knew in my heart, which was, you know, you can do this, now go do it. And he is one of the 4 people that pushed me to start my own business. And that was over 11 years ago. And I will never be able to thank him enough for the trust and belief that he had in me. And at a time where I felt like nobody in my profession saw me for who I was, he saw me and he reached out and he touched my heart. And on all the hard days, that's one of the places I can go to.
Thank you for sharing.
So, it's about the relationships. You hit it, Mark. I mean, I tell people all the time, I said it last night on the phone. I said, you're either a relationship person or you're a transactional person. You're either somebody that looks at people, what can I get out of them? This is an ATM. Once I get all the money, I'll go to the next ATM. Or you build relationships. And relationships go up and down. They're difficult. They're hard. There's adversity. You have to learn each other. You have to learn personalities. But when you're in it for the relationship, those people will always trust you and they'll always find their way back. And I think that relationship is the only way to go, and it's the only way, in my opinion, you're going to get to heaven. Because when you go up to God and say, I'm a transactional person, and here's my bank account and all the money I took from people, and here's all the things that I got, but I didn't give anything, I don't think that gets you into heaven. I think what gets you into heaven is saying, God, I tried, I worked my butt off, and I cared about people, and at the basis of everything, I loved. And that's what I was taught. That's what I know. And I don't think that I'm where I am today without any of that. So I love hearing that echoed from you, Mark. I tell Christy this all the time, but, Christy, every single day is a reminder that your life is not that bad. And anything, like if she could go through everything that she went through, we can literally all get up in the morning and do something. And I've seen Pat through so many years, through being on James Street in a small place in an apartment area, to being on the food truck, to now having the location and the food truck. And Pat never gave up. She never gave in. She believed in her vision and her mission and her dreams. And Christy's believed in her vision and her mission and her dreams. And I've done the same, and it sounds like you have too, Mark. So I feel spoiled when we get to do Christy's Corner and we get to share stories, because I think you get lost in the hustle and bustle sometimes of life, but I'm constantly moved by the fact that where Pat was when I met her, and I said, Pat, you're going to do it. You're going to get it. You have great food. You have a great product. Like, I believed in Pat, and I kept calling her back, and Pat can attest this. I'd call her up and be like, do you want to work together? Can we do this? Can we do that? Because I wanted to help her. Because the first time I met her and I tried the grilled peanut butter and jelly sandwich and we sat and we talked, I walked out of that room saying, I want to help this woman. And I sat with Christy at the fairgrounds, and I sat with her and I said, listen, we're going to have to figure things out, but I want to help. I want to do something that helps you, because I love the story that you tell. I love that you're helping. Christy doesn't know this, or maybe you do, Christy, but you're helping people not jump off a bridge today. And I can't tell you how many people will never be able to look you in the face and say it, because there's so many, but you're keeping people from giving up. And
I hope so, Dan. And I hope that just sharing my story, the big thing is with domestic violence, people always, I'm going to help that person. I'm going to help them in a week. I'm going to help them in a month. No, my story tells you have to help them today, because you don't know when that day is going to be, that the switch is going to flip and the person, he or she, is going to lose control and try to kill the person or try to just cause harm, whether it be physical harm or emotional harm. I mean, they're going to go to that extent that we can't often come back from. So thank you, Dan. I am so grateful for this being able to get my story out there. And every time that we talk, just some way we get to bring it back to domestic violence, bringing up the awareness, and hopefully we are changing people's attitudes and minds and bringing them more knowledge, because there's so many people that have never been in a domestic violence situation that don't really understand that it isn't always just physical. It is sometimes emotional, sexual, financial. There's so many different forms of domestic violence.
Yeah, I think you've enlightened me in experiences that I've had and experiences of people that I love in what that is, to put a name on it, to put a face on it. And what do they say, that the first way to get to peace and tranquility and safety is to realize the problem, to see it, and to call it by its name so that you can move forward from it. And you and I have talked off the air about a lot of stuff. And the day I met you, I told you a vulnerable story that I don't sit and share with everybody in my life, because as a man, we're taught you cannot be victimized, you cannot be abused in a relationship, which I found out is very wrong. So, for everything that you do and for the fight that's in you, I appreciate it tremendously, and I love it. And I love that you have parents that fight. So shout out to your parents too, because I know that they're working hard, and I know we talked about your brother last time, and what you're doing for him is incredible. So I know he's smiling up in heaven. I know Pat's working her tail off at a gig she's got going on right now. And Mark, you sound like the person that I want to literally just like sit and be like, okay, let's spend Monday on this book, and then let's spend Tuesday on this other. Like, I need more time. So I'm spoiled. I'm always spoiled with Pat and Christy, because I love you both and I appreciate you both tremendously. And I don't say that unless I mean it. And Mark, gosh darn it, you're going to have to come back on the show. So I guess you're stuck with us now.
Yeah. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Christy. You both have inspired me greatly today, and I hope you both get to Connecticut again soon. Come to our annual dinner. And Christy, I know you've been working with Johnny. You couldn't find, the both of you are perfect. You are perfect. You are living and breathing inspiration, both you and Johnny Callis. I'm so happy you're in Connecticut with Johnny. And Dan, anytime you want somebody on your show, it would be an honor. Thank you both so much from the bottom of my heart, really.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, and thank you to Pat. Pat, can you still hear us? Pat's here.
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. Well, good luck on your truck today.
Thanks.
Have a
Love
good
you,
one,
Pat.
Pat.
Be
Stay
good.
warm.
We'll talk with you. We'll talk with you all soon, and thank you again. Thank you, Mark, for being a part of the show. So for Christy, for Pat, and for Mark, this is Christy's Corner on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, proudly brought to you with PB&J's Lunchbox. Have a great day.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys.
Take care.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Thank
Love,
you.
Christy. Thank you.
Love you, Mark. Have a good one.
Thank you.
With that coming here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life. Christy's Corner featuring International Boxing Hall of Famer Christy Salters Martin, as well as boxing photographer and the owner of PB&J's Lunchbox, which is at Lemoyne today, working her tail off as she always does, the incredible Pat Orr, and the wonderful guest that I am more than honored to have on the show today, and more than moved. And honestly, I feel like we just met someone that needs to frequent this show. Mark Allen Baker. Go and check out all of his work, buy his books, support what he does. You could go to readmarkallenbaker.com. That's readmarkallen, A-L-L-E-N, baker.com. readmarkallenbaker.com. Get to know his history, buy his books, connect with him. Wow, that was great. So I'm very moved. We got Papa Joe coming up next in just a couple moments here as we take a step aside for a fast break. He'll be sitting in with me as I'm here in northern Florida before I head down to Boca Raton later on today. We'll be back after this.
Hi, this is Amy from Mother's Cupboard, home of the whole frittata. We are open daily 6 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. For takeout orders, call 315-432-0942 and tune in to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora for our monthly food challenge and try our Wake Up Call signature menu item available 7 days a week. Here at Mother's Cupboard, we are Central New York, and it's our honor to serve you.
Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory remind us that every day is worth celebrating at 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. Open Monday through Saturday in-store and always online at maandpaspopcorn.com. Serving our Central New York community and beyond, order anywhere, anytime at maandpaspopcorn.com. Stop in to get a tin at Ma and Pa's on 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York to get your half-price refills for the rest of your life. Come to Ma and Pa's for your holiday gift giving for family, friends, employees, and clients. And remember, for fundraising and events, to call 315-450-6272. That's 315-450-6272. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. How corny are you?
This is Jimmer Sikowski, owner-operator of Chick-fil-A Cicero, 7916 Brewerton Road in Cicero, right in front of the Home Depot. I had a deep feeling that God wanted me to do something bigger with my life and to help people, help others. He kept putting Chick-fil-A in my life, and I realized as I was going through the franchise selection process that positively impacting the lives of others was really core to what we do here at Chick-fil-A. First of all, it starts with the food. The food is brought in fresh daily. We bring in local produce. We prepare to order in the kitchen. We hand bread our chicken. We hand spin our milkshakes. It's great food. It doesn't taste like fast food. I think the second thing is the way people feel when they come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. It's different. We try to treat people with intentional kindness here, which is very different and deeper than good customer service. And so I think it feels remarkable for most people to come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. And then lastly, the impact that we try to have in the community is very different. It's a big part of the expectation of every operator of a Chick-fil-A restaurant is that they're actively engaged in their community, they're a leader in the community, and they're making a difference. When they realize that what we're striving to do is to shine a little light in their life, that's a very, very different experience than you will have in any other quick service restaurant. And it's that remarkable experience that I think people will emotionally connect with.
Avicoli's, located on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, has been your trusted neighbor for decades. Located just steps from Liverpool High School, we're happy to have the Liverpool Warriors on-site, on-location broadcast at Avicoli's through Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora every single month, featuring student athletes, coaches, and administration throughout the year from Liverpool High School. Head out to Avicoli's today on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, open Tuesday through Sunday for lunch, dinner, and drinks. We'd love to see you out there, and of course you can call them at 315-622-5100 for takeout, delivery, and catering. That's 315-622-5100, and also find them on myavicolis.com. That's myavicollis.com. Having peace of mind when you're out of town that your furry-loving friend is safe and sound means taking them to Canine Campground, because we all know that when it comes to the love of our pets, it goes well beyond the call of duty to make sure they're safe and sound. Right, Lily? So take a ride to 242 Johnson Street in East Syracuse, New York, and see Canine Campground and where your dog will be staying in the classic cabin, the executive cabin, the grand cabin, or of course the luxury cabin, because if you know Lily, you know she loves luxury. Now you don't have to wait to the last minute to find a family member or a friend that'll take your dog for a few days. Call Canine Campground at 315-299-4013. That's 315-299-4013. Their drop-off and pickup times are Monday through Sunday. Check K9campground.com for more information. That's the letter K, the number 9, and campground spelled with a K.com. K9campground.com.
When you're going out of town, bring your dog to Canine Campground.
PB&J's Lunchbox, the food truck that you love finding all throughout Central and Upstate New York, now has a street-side cafe. So when you're craving their traditional favorites as well as their out-of-box amazing menu items, you can now head to 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York. Located just minutes from the highway, the Thruway, Destiny USA, and Onondaga Lake Parkway, PB&J's Lunchbox Street-Side Cafe is there for you Monday through Saturday from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., serving breakfast, lunch, and dinner all throughout the day. Get breakfast for dinner, dinner for lunch, whatever you fancy, including their award-winning grilled peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Find them at 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York. PB&J's Lunchbox, where we love to know what's in your lunchbox.
If I had to describe it, I would like to say welcoming and kind of homey. Like, I feel home when I'm here.
Here's a special message from North Star Nutrition in North Syracuse and Nutrition Wave in Cicero on their very unique shakes and teas.
I always ask them, are you looking for a shake or a tea? Like, are you hungry or do you need a little bit of a pick-me-up? And then from there, I normally gear it towards whichever they prefer. So I say we offer full meal replacement shakes. They're 24 grams of protein, 21 vitamins and minerals. So the vitamins and minerals in that shake make it a full meal. And you'll stay full for about 4 or 5 hours. And if they want a tea, then I'll tell them that there's either 115 to 200 milligrams of caffeine. I would compare it to maybe 2 cups of coffee, and I explain all the benefits that are in the tea. Like, they have B vitamins to sustain your energy all day long. They have a tea for mental clarity and focus. They have a thermogenic tea to help boost your metabolism, burn calories. Aloe is great for nutrient absorption and digestion. And I say there's other flavors in it for the pretty colors and flavors. I always ask them, like, what's your favorite lollipop flavor? And then I'll go from there, and I'm like, well, believe it or not, there's less than a gram of sugar and it's good for you. The shakes, I say it's like your favorite candy bar or your favorite ice cream because you've had them. It genuinely does not taste like a regular protein shake. This was the first yes that I've ever given because I've always been like too shy or too scared to like talk to people or anything, and this just kind of really opened me up. I've stayed here so long because I just love seeing everybody's faces, having them like sit down at the bar and just telling us little tidbits about their life. You really have no idea what's going on in other people's life, and I feel like this job specifically really puts it into perspective and just kind of helps you enjoy other people's presence. As like a young adult and as a person, I have learned so much working here. Like, to me, it's way more than just shakes and teas.
For healthy drinks that taste amazing in a welcoming atmosphere, head to North Star Nutrition on 628 South Main Street in North Syracuse and Nutrition Wave on 6197 State Route 31 in Cicero. Open 7 days a week at each location. And a welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, as I'm going to go ahead and get PJ on the screen with us here. We are down in North Florida, and it is always an honor and a privilege to be here on the broadcast with Papa Joe. So let's get PJ all stationed here and ready to go as we are here with Papa Joe. PJ, how we doing?
Good morning, Daniel. Everything's okay?
Yeah. You and I have had a lot to get into today. We got a lot to unpack and a lot of pieces to talk about. So first and foremost, Syracuse recruiting. I know you're always on the recruiting trail. You're always looking at the recruiting world and who has what and who's keeping what and whatnot. So I'd love to get your take on how you feel like Syracuse has been in recruiting. And while we do that, I'll put up the true freshman list that we have so far.
Okay, good. Look at this. I like that.
So what are your thoughts?
I think that Fran is doing one heck of a job, and I don't know the man. You've met him. I know his history. It's a good job history. And him being from the north, shall we say New Jersey, New York area, Pennsylvania area,
Yeah.
I think that it's a fertile ground for recruiting. And he's done a good thing. Plus, he's getting some transfer students. So, I mean, what not to like? I mean, of course, you got to put it on the field to play, but I think he's heading in the right direction. And I know after you interviewed him, you were really impressed about him. So let's see where he goes. You're right. I have my my eyes and ears on the recruiting trail all the time. And when my Gator is struggling, I of course gravitate back to Syracuse and see how they're doing. And they are doing quite well. I'm trying to pull it up now.
Yeah, and we've been able to put in a lot of, you look at Syracuse and what they've been able to put together, and it has been a very eventful last couple of weeks for the Orange. And, all of this coming while Fran Brown is here with Syracuse. And you look at this list that we have, the 2024 incoming true freshman commits that he has in less than a month's time and in just a couple weeks as we get ready for the holiday season. Christmas come early as Yassine Willis, a running back out of Montvale, New Jersey, committed on December 10th of this year. Jahid Lassane Jr., tight end out of Irvington, New Jersey, also committed on the 10th. Jalen Hornsby, wide receiver out of Atco, New Jersey, committed on the 10th. Emmanuel Ross, wide receiver out of Red Bank, New Jersey, committed on December 13th. And Caden Brown, who is a legacy student athlete, as his father, Albin Brown, was a linebacker on the team from 1987 to 1989. Caden Brown, an edge rusher out of Brooklyn, committed on December 17th. And you look at Ross, decommitted from Stanford to commit to Syracuse. Hornsby decommitted from Texas A&M. Lassane decommitted from Kent State. And Yassine Willis decommitted from Pittsburgh to come to Syracuse. And then when we look at the list of transfer commits, I'm going to wait and get to do this on the show because I want to show you how Fran is constantly doing this in motion. And so just like it happened last night, I'm going to go ahead and put this in here as it happened later on yesterday, and that is that Devin Grant has joined the Orange, a defensive back from the University of Buffalo. He has decided to come over to Syracuse, and so looking at Devin Grant and his history, Devin Grant has 2 years of eligibility left. So I want to look at this transfer sheet, and I wanted to put this up in the moment to show how things with Fran Brown can be instantaneous. Yeah. So Jackson Meeks, wide receiver from Georgia, who has 1 year remaining. Zeed Haynes, who is another wide receiver from Georgia, who has 4 years remaining. Kyle McCord, quarterback from Ohio State, with a year left. James Hurd Jr., an edge rusher out of West Virginia, 4 years left. And Devin Grant, who comes from a couple hours south of Syracuse, University at Buffalo, with 2 years remaining after playing as a true freshman and a true sophomore. Here are 5 transfer students that are coming into Syracuse, and a bunch of them with multiple years, and then Kyle McCord and Jackson Meeks with 1 year to go.
Kyle McCord, I think, is the the jewel of this class. He's got everything. He's got all the intangibles that's needed. He's a smart guy, big guy. Learned in a good system at Ohio State, even though I don't like their football per se, but he certainly learned it enough to lead one of the better teams in the country. And if you can do that, and I think he threw a ton of yards, 3,600 yards or something like that, and 29 touchdowns, something like that.
Finished with 3,170 yards, 24 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. He's 12-1 as a starter, 11-1 this season, and helped to lead them to a New Year's Six Bowl that they're going to be playing in here this season as well, and just outside of the college football playoff.
Like it. You're going to have fun down there when you go to your game. Right?
Yeah, and so speaking of that, I'll be heading down to Boca Raton today, and here in northern Florida this morning on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, but not forgetting all of those wonderful partners that we have in upstate New York, including the exclusive multimedia marketing partnership with your Bryan and Stratton Bobcats of Syracuse. Big time shout out to the Bobcats, the men's team, who is ranked #1 in the nation as we go into the holiday season, and the women's team at Bryan and Stratton College of Syracuse, who's ranked #2 in the nation, two fantastic programs looking to vie for national championships this year. So a big-time shout-out to Brian and Stratton of Syracuse. So whenever some people are saying, what's going on with basketball in Syracuse? What's this team doing? What's that? What's Syracuse up to? What's this and that? Brian and Stratton College of Syracuse in men's and women's soccer and men's and women's basketball have vied for national championships. The men's and women's soccer teams have won national championships. And we have a baseball team that just started last season, so we get to make history and see that in the making, and the esports program as well with a new head coach. So a lot of great things happening at Bryan and Stratton, and this was given to me from Clay Gagan Sherman, who knows that my number is 21, and so he gave me my first official jersey, which I proudly wear today, and my second home of Florida for Wake Up Call, remembering my first home of Central and Upstate New York. But I'm heading down to Boca. I've never been to Boca, and if you're looking to go to Boca, if you look on a map from North Florida in my coverage of the Jaguars, if you go from Jacksonville to Boca, it's a straight line straight down the Atlantic coast, and you take 95.
Right.
So looking forward to get down to Boca Raton. And my dad actually told me, I did not know this. I was in Boca when I was 2 years old, and my dad had a guy that he worked with, I think it was Dick Hennessy, and he worked with, as a lawyer, he worked with Dick Hennessy. And when I was a little kid, 2 years old, I thought that I must have had gone to Dick Hennessy's pool. So I was in Boca Raton, and I said, Dad, can we go back to Dick's pool? And I thought that the pool in Boca belonged to Dick Hennessy. So that was so I was down in Boca when I was 2, and 36 years later, I am making my return to Boca.
You'll have a lot of fun. Syracuse should be real competitive in that game, too.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to being in Boca. We have huge news coming up for you on how you're going to be able to witness and experience Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora in Boca Raton. So if you're traveling into Boca, or you live in Boca, or you live in the area, or you're coming down for the bowl game, or you're a townie that's going to be hanging out in Boca Raton as you normally do, we have massive news coming up with a great local business in Boca Raton on how you will experience Wake Up Call this Wednesday, December 20th, and this Thursday, December 21st, in a perfect primer for the bowl game. So we're going to bring you into the bowl in a really interesting way with some really big news that's coming up right after today's show. So when PJ and I sign off, go to our social media, Facebook at Wake Up Call DT, X at Call DT, and Instagram at Wake Up Call _DT, as well as on YouTube.com/Wake Up Call DT. And I will be sharing with you the news that I very much am having trouble keeping to myself.
Why don't you say it?
You want me to say it right now?
Yes, of course.
I want me to tell everybody right now.
Right.
All right.
Don't wait. Heck.
All right. Well,
You're on the roll, babe.
So with that being said,
Time to rock and roll.
I am going to put the video out there, but for those of you that are here watching live,
Remember, you're going to a rock and roll Purdy.
yes,
that.
we are.
From the Boca.
So, Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. We are changing our time, and it is for bowl season that we are doing this. So, I need you to know this. If you're not going to be in the area, you can, of course, watch on our same channels. So you can watch on YouTube.com and Facebook.com, both /Wake Up Call DT, and on wakeupcalldt.podbean.com. You can listen. And for those of you in Boca, you have one place to be for the next 2 days. On Wednesday, December 20th, from 7 to 9 p.m., we're moving the show from the morning to the night. From 7 to 9 p.m. this Wednesday, December 20th, I will be at O'Brien's Irish Pub, and it is a Syracuse-centric bar in Florida, minutes from the stadium at FAU where the Boca Raton Bowl is going to be played between Syracuse and USF. This Wednesday, December 20th, 7 to 9 p.m., and this Thursday, December 21st, 3 to 5 p.m., as your primer going into the game. We will be on site, on location, at O'Brien's Irish Pub, an Italian back in an Irish pub, for 2 days to broadcast live from Boca and the Boca Raton Bowl experience. Wake Up Call is coming to you to give you a bowl primer unlike any other, and I'm not going alone.
No.
I will be bringing Syracuse Orange football alumni with me both days, so you get to meet those that built Syracuse football on the way to the next Syracuse football game.
MT likes all this, don't you, MT?
Yeah.
It's going to be big. I'm very, very excited. So got some
I'm glad you
awesome,
said
awesome
something.
guests that are going to be coming
Good,
up.
good.
Yeah.
Rock, go.
Got some big guests
Remember, it's
coming
going
up.
to take a while to get there now. 95 is, at this time of year, is really congested. And sometimes they have 3 lanes, sometimes they even have 4 lanes.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, it's a boring trip because the traffic is so heavy. And in saying that, you always have the occasional fender bender. And when you have a fender bender on 95, forget about it. You're locked up unless you swing over to US 1 and keep going to get around it and go south. But it's a challenging drive. You just have to go to the bathroom. You have to eat.
Yeah.
And
Well,
keep rolling.
I got some friends along the way, so it's gonna make my trip all the more eventful as I get down to Boca. But I will see you all in Boca Raton for your pre-game 2 days. We don't pre-game one day on Wake Up Call. We're pre-gaming for 2 days, 7 to 9 p.m. Wednesday, December 20th, and 3 to 5 p.m. on Thursday, December 21st, which is game day. I'm getting out of there at 5 p.m. because I have to go over to the arena and do all my pregame stuff and do all that fun stuff. So you're going to be able to experience so many great things, and you are a Syracuse-centric bar, O'Brien's, and I am bringing you Syracuse football alumni, and they are driving from all over Florida to come and say hello, so make sure you come out to it. This is going to be an experience of the Boca Raton Bowl and Syracuse football that nobody else is going to bring you, and that's because we like to make history on Wake Up Call.
Doing good job. That's going to be a lot of fun, and we'll be tuned in certainly for the show and of course for the game.
And you know that Papa Joe watches all 42 bowl games.
No.
So there is not a bowl game on Wednesday. There was one yesterday. There is one today. And the only bowl game this Thursday is the Boca Raton Bowl. It's the only game being played in America. And so you have no excuses. It's on ESPN at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. You'll be with me going into the bowl game. And then those of you in Boca will be going to FAU's stadium, where they like to call it Winning in Paradise. And I was told that if I go to the top of the press box and I look out, and this is fitting every vision that I had of FAU based on a VP and Director of Athletics Brian White's description of it on the show. If you go to the top of the press box and you look straight out, you can see the waves crashing in the distance right by FAU Stadium. So I'm very excited.
Forget the football, go surf.
Yeah. So I got to find a honey. That's what I have to do. Yeah. I got to find a nice Floridian. So we got to connect the history of my life in Syracuse and my life in Florida. But very excited to be going down to Boca Raton. Cannot wait for it. And the excitement is already around Syracuse as the early signing period is this Wednesday, December 20th. So when I see you at O'Brien's Irish Pub tomorrow night, I'm going to be able to tell you who signed with Syracuse.
Good, perfect. And of course, I'll be watching the Gators signings, and we'll see where we go.
What
a
are
little upset?
You're upset about the Gators? The
well,
other orange and blue?
Coach Napier has kept the class together for the most part.
Yeah.
But as the deadline approaches, stuff gets out, rumors here and something there, and look at this and watch this, and this guy's going to flip here and this guy's going to go backwards, whatever, So we lost one of our 5-star defensive backs, Xavier Philistine. Texas flipped him. He's from Texas, so it doesn't surprise me. But the good thing about it is, the recruiting is that the best quarterback, in my opinion, the best quarterback in the country, is DJ Lagway from Texas, and he's committed to Florida a year ago, and he's been going back and forth. He's been trying to talk up to school, and he's actually trying to recruit on the road. And as far as I know now, these kids they're a little squirrely. It's a big decision for these kids, and he's. I'll believe it when I see him sign, and he's coming. This kid's a dynamo, man. He passed for 5,600 yards this year.
Yeah.
41 touchdowns. He ran for 899 more yards and another 12 touchdowns. He's 6'3", 225. He's a bigger version of Jalen Hurts that we saw last night. This kid's the real deal, and I can't wait for him to go. Unfortunately for him, even though Florida had a down year, Graham Mertz, who came from Wisconsin to Florida, he did a really good job this year. He wasn't thought of too well up in Wisconsin because I guess he threw a lot of interceptions, and my bros up there were busting my chops. Hey, this guy's not going to be any good. He's not going to do anything. Anyway, he passed for 3,600 yards, 27 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions. Did a heck of a job putting together a season that really went awry as the schedule got tougher. The Gators folded a little bit, but Graham was still thrown in there, which is good. Now, Mr. Lagway, if he signs with Florida, which I hope he does, and I know he will, that he'll probably back up Graham Mertz next year because Graham is coming. Yeah. And I think this is his 6th year or something like that. He's got one more year eligibility, and hey, the guy's going to get his master's degree from Florida, in football's pay it all. So, DJ, if you're listening, DJ, the real DJ, the real DJ.
The real DJ, he says.
DJ to DT, then DT to DJ. Hang in there, bud. As soon as you get to Florida, I know you're going to go to school in January, so you're going to be right in. You're going to be jumping right in with the spring football. And Florida had a number 3 team for a while. Then they had number 5 team for a while. Then they have another 8 team for a while. Now they're in number 10 because of the deflection of Xavier. So I'll be watching very closely to see if the Gators can connect on all of their recruits. Also, Mr. Napier has got 3 guys on the transfer portal that are coming in. So I'm looking forward to excitement from my Gators. And, of course, you're looking forward to excitement from Syracuse. And this spring football practice ought to be something to behold. You need to be there for that, bud.
Yeah, well, hopefully this coaching staff will let us come in, and we'll do it not during my broadcast.
No.
So, because we have, for those of you that don't know, for many years, Syracuse did not allow us to come see practice, and then they allowed us to see 10 minutes of practice where we got to see the guys jog out, do jumping jacks, and then we were kicked out. So that was pointless. We were also told we could go up to Fort Drum, drive an hour and a half to Fort Drum from Syracuse, watch the guys for 15 minutes, leave Fort Drum, drive around for 2 hours aimlessly, and then come back for interviews, which I was like, that's pointless as well. So hopefully we'll have the opportunity to do that. And this last year, Dino finally opened up practice a bit. Syracuse and Dino did. But guess what? It was right during wake-up call, so I could not be there, and that made me very sad after waiting all these years and then to have them do it in the middle of practice. So these are my 2 notes. Fran, please have open practice, comma, please do it after 11 a.m. So that's all I asked for, so that I could come and see it. Or do it from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. I don't care, but make it not 9 to 11 so that I could come and see it. But there's a lot of buzz around Syracuse football. I haven't seen this much excitement and frenzy around the program since I was probably in college. So it's been a bunch of years. I graduated in 2007. It's 2023. So it's the most excitement I've seen around Syracuse in about 15 years.
Well, who makes the decisions up there for these things? I don't get it.
Open and close practice?
Yes, it's ridiculous.
Well,
I mean, I don't think that Dino did it. Did he?
Some of it might be on the coach. Some of it is something that has come through other things.
Who cares who comes and watch it? If you have other coaches come and watch your practice, who cares?
Well, when
as long
Syracuse
as you went on the field.
Well, when Syracuse went undefeated, everybody was allowed to practice. Fans, media, everyone. High school coaches used to go and sit in the meeting rooms. So
that's good.
Yeah. So maybe, just maybe, Fran says that he's all about the community. So my thought to you back to that, Fran, is if you're all about the community, then let us come in, let us see practice. I'm a much better source of information when I'm actually allowed to see the guys grow and develop.
Sure.
I used to do a camp notebook where I would take anywhere from 5 to 8 pages of practice of just writing on a big spiral notebook all of the notes that I was taking from the practice. So the fans, you're going to be a lot more informed if they allow us to practice, so hopefully they do.
Yeah. Well, good luck with that, bud.
Yeah, we're going to take a step aside for a fast break. When we come back, PJ and I are going to shift gears to the NF of L and say what the F is going on with the Jacksonville Jaguars. We're here in northern Florida, and it's sunny in St. Augustine, but it's been cloudy in Jacksonville. We'll talk about it right after this. In these unique times, there are those in our community that give us a sense of normalcy and positivity. Pizza Man on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville has been here for you for over 35 years and is here now. Call 315-638-1234 or order online at pizzamanbville.com to bring those familiar tastes into your home. And remember to come see our monthly on-site broadcasts centered around the community and our Baldwinsville Bees. Pizza Man in Baldwinsville. Any way you slice it, they are always here for you. Looking for your next ride? Look no further than Great Lakes Honda City, located on 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Serving our community for decades, their new and pre-owned vast array of vehicles are available to you Monday through Saturday on site. To search from home, shop at GreatLakesHondaCity.com. Call 315-365-5576 to set up an appointment. That's 315-365-5576 for Great Lakes Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Great cars, great people, Great Lakes.
Our corporate purpose at Chick-fil-A is to glorify God by being faithful stewards of all that's entrusted to us and to positively influence all those who come in contact with Chick-fil-A. And what became increasingly clear from our success in Cicero is that people love Chick-fil-A. And also I think we recognized that, we had a great opportunity to grow the brand and grow our platform. I felt incredibly grateful when I was selected to be a Chick-fil-A operator. I think what it's meant for me, what I've come to realize on a very deep level is that this is a calling for me. It's not a career. It's not a job. The Lord called me to be a Chick-fil-A operator and to use these restaurants to glorify Him and to positively influence other people. I'm blessed. I'm very blessed.
Head to Chick-fil-A Clay on 3974 State Route 31 in Liverpool, New York.
Carvel DeWitt, it's what happy tastes like. Do you know why? Because we make ice cream. Creamy, rich, flavorful ice cream. Not yogurt or iced milk like some of our competitors. Ice cream. Fresh, by hand, daily. For the calorie conscious, we have something new for you. Our new Carvelite. Same great flavor, creaminess, and texture of our regular ice cream with only 35 calories an ounce. So whether you want an ice cream cake, flying saucer, dasher, carvalanche, hard or soft ice cream, we will satisfy your craving with our fresh, handmade regular or new Carvelite ice cream. Carvel DeWitt. It's what happy tastes like.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant.
GG Cards and Breaks. Like, comment, subscribe.
GG Cards and Breaks, located for you on 639 Del Mar Place in Syracuse, New York is open 7 days a week, Monday through Saturday from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and on Sundays from 10 to 5. GG Cards and Breaks is the same hobby, new memories. For those of you that have collected for years, decades even, it is the perfect place to continue your hobby memories. And for those of you that are just starting out for the first time ever, GG Cards and Breaks is the perfect first impression of getting into the sports card world. Hockey, basketball, baseball, as well as football, all sport, AEW, Pokemon, and the new Disney Lorcana. You can get it all at GG Cards and Breaks. So the only place I know that has every Major League Baseball, National Basketball, and National Football League teams. You can go there and get NFL, NBA, and MLB right there on the back wall. They have every single team has their own box. You can go through and get to know each of your wonderful, wonderful players that you have there. You could get autographs as well as special inserts, rookie cards, patch cards. It's not just base cards you're going to find in those boxes. You're going to find some steals and some really awesome cards inside of their MLB, NFL, and NBA boxes. And again, I don't know anybody that goes through the time-intensive decision to put all that together, which is really, truly something special and unique and shows how much they care. Make sure you go to GG Cards and Breaks, let them know that Wake Up Call sent you, or you could just say, DT sent me in. And I appreciate everybody that's gone over, including within the last couple days. Very much appreciate those going there for their Christmas and holiday gift giving. So, GG Cards and Breaks, 639 Del Mar Place in Syracuse, New York, open 7 days a week. And we'll see you at GG Cards and Breaks right off of Teal Ave today. With that being said, here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, PJ and I are shifting gears to the NFL. So let's just go straight to the Jaguars.
Pissed.
And
Really pissed.
How absolutely awful they've been playing these last few weeks.
There's not much to say, really. I mean, unfortunately, these kind of games are in a national format, especially last night.
Yeah.
And the team can't finish. And this has been going on for a couple of years. I mean, if you're going to they're a good team, don't get me wrong, but they're not a great team. And they're not going to be a great team until they can finish. Like Dallas, most of the time, San Francisco most of the time, but they're not finishing. I'm a little concerned about the offense. The defense is spending a lot of time on the field. They don't need to be on the field that often, that long, because the offense has got to have some 6 and 7 minute drives. I mean, these guys are not machines; they're human beings. I mean, they're getting killed out there. Yeah. Not the offense, the defense. I don't care for the play calling. I'm going to rant a little bit.
Go ahead.
I don't care about the play calling. I know Press Taylor's one of these bright, young, analytical minds that comes through. Press, you're not doing a job.
He needs to press.
Needs to press. Well, if you're pressing a basketball, it's a full court press, right?
Yeah.
Listen, they don't use everyone in their arsenal all the time. It was unfortunate that Kirk got hurt. I understand that, but we have one home run on this team, and that's Calvin Ridley. Press. You're not stretching the field to get this guy the ball. Forget the down and outs, 8-10 yards. No, he's not going to go over the middle. He's going to get killed.
Yeah.
Let him fly. So if he overthrows him 3 times, at least the defense will be backing up a little bit when they see him out there the next time. The center of the field will be open up for a tight end or something like that. They're not scoring enough. They're not putting decent drives together. ATN is going to get killed also, too, because they're using him too much. Tank's doing a good job. Farrell's doing a really good job at tight end. Evan Ingram can catch anything. But it's not sustainable. They're not putting it all together, and they're certainly not using Calvin Ridley. Now, you can call me up and bitch all you want and say, I heard you on DT, and you're wrong. Well, if I'm wrong, prove me right. Do something other than what you're doing. Coach Pedersen, if you got any couillons, take over the play calling. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, this is a team that has a bunch of weapons. And with the weapons that they have, the question that comes is, Why are they struggling so much? So you look, when a team has individual success but not overall success, you go to the play calling, you go to the coaching side of things. It's the same thing that happened in Syracuse, which ironically, Andre Cisco, who is now a Jaguar, has been a Jaguar for the last few years, getting drafted by Jacksonville in the 3rd round. Andre should know all about this. He was individually talented on a team that was not collectively performing well. And now he's individually talented on a team that's collectively not performing well, which typically means that there's an issue with coaching, an issue with scheming, an issue with getting information through, people following information, right? A coach can give you the play, you got to run the play. So there's some type of lack of communication. The play's not working or the person's not running the correct play. So looking at the Jacksonville Jaguars right now and looking at where this team is at, we keep saying the same thing, but it's reality. They have too much talent to be this bad. And this offense is just sputtering. Now, Trevor Lawrence had a high ankle sprain. That might keep a guy out 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Might keep a guy out the rest of the season. Says, hey, you know what? I don't want to get hurt. I don't want to deal with this. The guy comes, plays the next week. Not only plays, but in the first quarter, he's running like a gazelle. He's given everything that he possibly can. You know, this offensive line, again, has had to go through injuries, and Ezra Cleveland and Walker Little and different guys having to move around and step up and do different things. And obviously Cam Robinson wasn't available in the beginning because of the suspension. So, you know, the offensive line, again, has had to deal with stuff. But Trevor Lawrence, I mean, you have the weapons, you have the talented quarterback, you have the franchise guy. So I do look to Press Taylor and I say, what are we running? What are these out routes? What are these short routes? What are these constantly looking? We're not looking down the field. You're not looking for – don't tell me Calvin Ridley can't beat half of the NFL in a foot race. So, you know, I mean, he's had the time. He hasn't spent a ton of time in the NFL. Having that year off due to the suspension, you know, it gives you more life. So he's a talented young receiver who doesn't have as much wear and tear on his body. Christian Kirk is a great possession receiver. Unfortunately, he's been injured. Zay Jones, he does some good things as well. I don't understand if you have a Calvin Ridley and a Christian Kirk and a Zay Jones and an Evan Engram, and right now you don't have Kirk, but you got the other guys. If Engram's great at being a possession guy and being more of a wide receiver than a tight end, and Trevor being able to trust him down the stretch in high-octane situations, and you got Zay Jones, who you can trust most of the time as he gets reacquainted with things and whatnot, because he's been out a little bit this season, and Kirk, who's been an awesome guy when he's in the game. How do you not find Calvin Ridley when you have these other weapons? It's not like you have Calvin and nobody else. It's not like you have Calvin and no good running back in Travis Etienne. So there's no excuse why this offense shouldn't be moving. This defense, number one in the country in takeaways for a big part of this season. This defense, constantly giving opportunities to the offense. This defense, in the game on Sunday night, got the ball turned over, gave an opportunity to the offense. This defense of Jacksonville that has been a turnover machine, creating opportunities that the offense isn't coming through with. And now the defense is struggling. And granted, guys are injured. Andre Cisco's been out. Campbell's been out as well. So you got half of your defensive starters in the defensive back line there that are out. That's something that you have to obviously deal with. But Rayshawn Jenkins has come up huge once again at safety. Guys are coming up. Guys are doing things. My question to Doug Peterson right now is, even with the injuries, you still got enough talent on the defense. You got more than enough talent on the offense. So why in the Sam hell can you not stop anybody? And why is this offense looking like an offense that has no talent, no star quarterback, no star running back, no good possession receivers? The offense on paper looks good, but the offense in a game looks like one of the most poor performing, just totally out of the game, checked out. I mean, I watch Jacksonville's offense, I look at the paper, and I look at what I'm seeing, and I'm completely baffled by the fact that this offense struggles to score 10 points a game.
It's exactly right, and it's unfortunate. And Patterson he's got to bite the bullet here. He's got to do something. Something's got to shake him up. Because frankly, if Lawrence goes down with another injury, he won't be playing again. There's only so much. He's a big man. Yeah. He's 6'6", 230, you know. I mean, if he falls on his ankle again and his ankle's not strong enough to hold him, he's going to go down. Look, the Jaguars were 8-3 a couple of weeks ago. They are now 8-6, and they're tied in They're tied in a division with two teams that shouldn't even be in the same conversation with them.
Yeah.
Except for Houston and their rookie quarterback, but he's out.
Yeah.
Now, they're 8-6.
8-6. Colts are 8-6. Texans are 8-6. The Jaguars own tiebreakers over both the Colts and the Texans, but with every team having the same record at 8-6 now, Jacksonville has backpedaled its way into a terrible situation where they really have to win out just to win the division.
Right, and true. There's a very good chance that they may not even make the playoffs. I didn't want to say that when I stopped at 8-6. I thought about it for a minute, and I there's a good chance that they could be, 8-9. I mean, come on. You could win a division 8-9, I guess, but it's disappointing. And we're fair weather. We're not fair weather fans. If they're getting beat 41-0, I'm still watching a game. If we're winning 41-0, I'm still watching a game.
Yeah. Except
when it's at night and I can't sleep. You guys were watching it. I couldn't watch it after the halftime. So
yeah,
that's you were up there. So
here's
let's hope that Doug Pederson makes some. You got to make some tough calls, I think, and I wouldn't be surprised if something happens that way.
3 games to go at the Buccaneers, so they'll travel down Florida. They'll travel down here to the western part of Florida. As I go to the east, they go to the west. They'll be going to face off against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at Raymond James Stadium and Baker Mayfield in that high-octane offense.
Baker Mayfield is lighting it up now. And he's got Godwin and Evans down there. Talk about guys that stretch the field.
And Rashad White's
look at those
well.
guys.
Yeah. And then you look at the Carolina Panthers will be the next game that Jacksonville has at home in their last home game of the regular season. Hopefully not their last home game of this season. If they were to make the playoffs and win the division, they will get at least one home game. So the Jaguars will play Carolina at home on the last day of the year, December 31st. And then they'll play on the road January 7th at the Tennessee Titans. That game time is still to be determined. More than likely, it's going to be at 1 o'clock. So you look at the games that they're playing. Panthers and at the Titans on paper look to be winnable games for the Jaguars because these teams are both not in great positions. And who knows if the Carolina Panthers are going to make another coaching change, and the Titans could be making a coaching change. The Bucs seem to be the toughest team that stand ahead of Jacksonville. They'll be playing them on Christmas Eve at 4:05 p.m. Eastern Time on CBS in the battle for Florida. So looking at these last 3 games, at Tampa, home against Carolina, at Tennessee, your thoughts?
Could be 10-7. 10-7 wins a division. And you can certainly beat Carolina easily, I'm sure. In Tennessee, they play them tough. But you go down to Baker Mayfield's country down there, and the way he throws to Godwin and Evans, that's what I like to see out of a quarterback. If you got 2 studs out there that can stretch the field, that's dangerous.
Yeah.
But when you only got one, maybe that's different. But Kirk, as good as he was, he's not near as fast as Ridley, though. But
to me, I think he was great. Yeah. Christian Kirk was a great decision to make. People question it. I was leery, too, about the amount of money that they had spent on Kirk for the 4-year deal. But he has come through in such a huge way. I thought he would be the heir apparent in Arizona to Larry Fitzgerald. That didn't work out. But he's been great in Jacksonville, and he's been a well-trusted possession receiver. He's a good receiver. You would imagine that with him and Calvin Ridley out there at the same time, Jacksonville should be a very tough team to stop. Now they don't have Kirk, but they still have Zay, and they have Evan Engram. And again, and you said it, I don't understand how Trevor Lawrence, with all the talent he has, that they wouldn't let him throw it down the field and see if Calvin Ridley can beat a guy once or twice. Give him a shot, give him another shot, 1st and 2nd down, see what he could do with it.
Believe me,
it's
it
Calvin
works.
Ridley, for goodness sakes.
It works. So if you miss a few incomplete passes when he goes down, believe me, the defense will be looking a little bit. Those defensive backs will be backing up a little bit when they see Calvin out there. Are they going to throw it long again? That leaves the middle open. So I'm just a pundit, but I'm a big football fan and have been for years. I remember years ago when Terry Bradshaw was the quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He won 4 Super Bowls with Chuck Noll. Terry Bradshaw didn't have stuff in his ears. He didn't have anyone telling him what to call or anything.
Yeah.
He called his own plays, every play, every game, his entire career. And all he did was win 4 Super Bowls. Some of these quarterbacks are smart enough to do that. I know they have the ability to check off, and Trevor certainly can check off. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but at least he gave it a shot. If they're in a situation and he sees something, then he should be able to check off. But imagine what Terry Bradshaw was doing years ago before they had the things in their helmets. These guys can't even move without someone telling them something. Oh, don't do anything until Press has to send you a play, or Doug sends you a play, or Campbell sends it a play for the defense.
Yeah.
It's a whole different ballgame. They won as men back then. These guys these days are puppets. They got to be told what to do. I wish that they had more autonomy at the line of scrimmage. And I think Trevor is smart enough to do that. Maybe he should suggest it. I don't know.
Well, at this point, you got to make some type of a change, as this team has been sputtering out in recent history. They've lost now 3 games in a row, and they've lost 4 of their last 6 games. The games that they have won in between are the Titans at home and the Texans on the road. They lost to the Bengals, lost to the Browns, lost to the Ravens, and now could be losing to the Buccaneers in their biggest test of the next 3 games. Remember, folks, they had a 5-game winning streak this season when they went overseas and won both games in London. When I said that they needed to regroup, reset, and refocus, they did exactly that. They beat the Falcons, they beat the Bills in London, came home, beat the Colts, went on the road, beat the Saints, went on the road and beat the Steelers, and now, since then, they have struggled, losing 4 of the last 6, like I said, and they are 8-6. Colts, Texans, all 8-6. We saw this last year, where the Jacksonville Jaguars had to win their last game of the season to just secure the division. This is not a situation you want to be in. They were in the driver's seat, and I do want to remind people this. A couple of weeks ago, Jacksonville was not the number 1 team in the AFC South. They were the number 1 team in the AFC. They had the number 1 seed in the AFC before Baltimore took it back, then Miami got it. Jacksonville went from number 1 team of 16 teams on the AFC side of the NFL to now barely hanging on to their division. And that's happened in just a few weeks.
Well, they're not going to beat Kansas City, and they're not going to beat Miami, and they're not going to beat Baltimore playing the way they are.
No.
So someone's going to have to make some changes.
Right.
Roll
so
on.
You got to hope to find their way, find their footing, make some changes, get some better play calling, and get some guys healthy, hopefully, as this team steps forward. And with stepping forward, you and I will step forward into making our picks.
We have picks here.
Yeah, so we got to make our picks for NFL Week 16. So we're going to bring up Week 16 here for you folks, and we're going to be, PJ and I are going to be making our picks on the good old whiteboard. So you see a black screen on here right now. We'll be making our picks on this black screen. PJ is going to go first. I will go second, as we always do. And so these are our NFL, and we're going to put this up here for you right now. These are our NFL Week 16 picks. So, PJ, you get to go first, as we have some games here in our holiday week. So, PJ will go, and then I will go. PJ will start things off with Thursday night's game, the Saints at the Rams. What do you got?
Well, Matthew Stafford lit it up yesterday really good. He's an extraordinary quarterback, and I don't know what happened at Detroit. Maybe he just wasn't protected enough. But Goff has gone over there and won with Coach Campbell. So, but anyway, let's not worry about that. He's lighting it up now. He looks tough, and I think playing at home, I think that they win this game easily over the Saints.
So, yeah, you have the Rams over the Saints. So, PJ's going with the Rams in this one. So, I'm going to go ahead and I'm actually going to put LAR for the Rams. So, yeah. So I'm going to go with the Rams on this one, and I'm going to go, I'm going to also go with the Rams. You know, Matthew Stafford, totally underestimated, underappreciated. He's been doing some good things, and I think that people forget about him because of all the focus on Dallas, San Francisco, and on Philly. But the Rams team at 7-7 right now is pushing toward the playoffs. So they got to win this game. This is a big-time game for them. The Saints, I said it preseason, when we sat right in the same spot, Papa Joe and I, we predicted the winners of each division and who would get in for the wild card. I told you that the NFC South would be the worst division in football. It has not disappointed. And the Saints are a part of that division. I think the Rams will get the win. Next one up, PJ, is the Bengals and actually, no. So we got these a little bit out of order here. So we're gonna go 1 o'clock games. So I'll bring up the 1 o'clocks for us. The 1 o'clock game for the Christmas week that we're going into here for week 16. It'll put us to our 2 Saturday games on Saturday, December 23rd.
4-inch.
Yeah, notable. Yeah, we have these two for Saturday, December 23rd. The notable games for Saturday, December 23rd, PJ, are, I want to tell you why Saturday, December 23rd is important. It's the day before Christmas Eve, and back in the day, my dog Shady, we drove out, my mom and my dad and I, in a snowstorm to Groton, New York, in the middle of nowhere, to get Shady on the eve of Christmas Eve. So on Saturday, December 23rd, on the Got You Day, when we went and got Lily, or when we went and got Shady, when we brought her home, just Saturday, December 23rd, a very meaningful day for my family. Cincinnati will play Pittsburgh, PJ. What do you got?
It's a 4:30 game. I think I'm going to be a little bit more controversial here, too. Pittsburgh is not playing very well at all. Now they've lost their quarterback for a while, Kenny Pickett.
Yep.
And the defense is not playing very well either. I like Pittsburgh in this game, but I tell you, I think I'm going to make it a prognostication. I don't want to, but I think that Mike Tomlin maybe has outlived his usefulness there in Pittsburgh. I think either he's going to make his own change, or they're going to change him. He's getting criticism from too many different areas, and the guy is a first-class guy, first-class coach, first-class man, period. Yeah. And I hate to see him go through this, but I seem to think maybe he's getting at the end of the line.
Yeah, you know, I'm going to – so you're going to go with Pittsburgh?
Yes.
Okay. So PJ is going to go ahead and take Pitt in this one. I am going to go with the Cincinnati Bungles, and I'm going to tell you why I'm going with the Bungles. Jake Browning has been absolutely incredible. Came into this week's games, week 15, with 3 games under his belt as a starter, 70% completion percentage, not in 1 game, not in 2 games, but over all 3 games, 70% completion percentage. Joe Burrow, you better watch out.
No,
Jake Browning's coming after you. Now, Jake Burrow, I don't worry about Joe Burrow losing his job by any stretch of the imagination, but I'll tell you something about Jake Browning. He is playing his way into getting an opportunity with some NFL team somewhere. He's got the Bengals pushing toward the playoffs. And you know where Pittsburgh is terrible this season? At home. So I'm going with Cincinnati. The next game on Saturday, the Buffalo Bills and the Los Angeles Chargers. PJ, Buffalo, fans are excited because Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, they don't have to worry about this. They're going to be able to watch their team on primetime on Saturday. Bills fans don't need an excuse to get into their game, but you're giving them a prime time with only 2 games on television, and Buffalo fans will be jumping through tables, as they normally do, for this game. Who do you got?
Well, Hebert being hurt for the Chargers, this is a no-brainer with Buffalo.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm going to have to take the Buffalo Bills as well. Buffalo Bills had a tremendous, they have these moments, right? They have these moments where they show up, and then they have these moments where they don't. And it's made them somewhat of an enigma, as this season they'll have really, really good games, and then they'll disappear. But then they go and take arguably the hottest team, one of the hottest teams in the NFL right now, And they not only beat the Cowboys, they beat the Cowboys by 3 touchdowns. The Buffalo Bills make no sense. They're in the playoffs. They're out of the playoffs. They're first place. They're last place. They're losing to Miami in the division. They're going to make the playoffs. They're doing this, that, and the third. The Buffalo Bills, you can never count them out. I'm not counting them out of this game. The Chargers, after the loss that they had, where they got blown the heck out last week, 63 points they allowed to the Las Vegas Raiders. They lose that game by over 40 points. They fire their coach. The Chargers don't have a head coach right now. They have an interim guy. The Chargers don't have a lot of answers, and the Buffalo Bills are going to take advantage of it. I'm going to go with Buffalo as well. So, yeah, I'm trying to get this right out here for you. So I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills to win this game, which brings us into Christmas Eve, folks. Yes, there's going to be games on Christmas Eve. I always feel terrible for these players. You say, Dan, they make millions of dollars. Why do you feel terrible? Because I believe everybody should be home for the holidays. The Buffalo Bills, they're going to be home for the holidays. They'll be able to hopefully get back from the West Coast, we hope, and to upstate New York. And then on Christmas Eve, there will be a long list of games. On Christmas Day, it's like Thanksgiving. Yep. They've changed it now. So Christmas Day and Thanksgiving Day with 3 games apiece. We'll get into those in a moment. On Christmas Eve, you'll be unwrapping these gifts from 1 o'clock all the way to Sunday Night Football. And the Sunday Night Football game, wow, that game looks ugly, but we'll get to that in a moment. Indianapolis at Atlanta. Speaking of ugly-looking games, the Indianapolis Colts and Gardner mother-freaking Minshew, we told you years ago, even with Trevor Lawrence, Gardner Minshew doesn't cost a lot of money. They didn't draft him high. Take him, keep him as your backup quarterback. He is probably, arguably, the best number 2 you're going to have in the country. No, they let him go. They let him go. They let the man who wore the mustache better than most go to the Indianapolis Colts, and look what happened. He's now chomping at the heels of the team that he used to be on. The Jacksonville Jaguars could have put him behind Trevor Lawrence. Now, with the Colts, he's right behind the Jaguars, looking to beat Trevor Lawrence and his old team in Jacksonville as he gets to go on the road to face off against Atlanta, who, by the way, folks, don't play any defense.
No, they're going to need it against this guy. I liked Minshew in this game.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with Minshew Mania here. The Jacksonville Jaguars are going to need to win their game because the Indianapolis Colts are in a position where they could take the division this week. I don't see them losing. Jacksonville's got to win. Seattle at Tennessee, PJ. Seattle, they don't look that pretty. Tennessee, they don't look that pretty either. This game might end 13-10.
Well, it depends if Geno Smith is playing, I guess. I don't think it makes much of a difference. I like Tennessee. Will Levis is really coming into his own, and it's quite evident now that Mike Vrabel is going to go with him, even going into next spring over Tannehill. So yeah, I like Levis in this game in Tennessee.
So you're going to go with Tennessee now. Keep in mind, folks, Monday Night Football last night as kind of like Seattle's never been out of anything. They're like in, they're out, they're in, they're out, but their play last night to beat the Eagles 20-17. The Eagles lose again. Mm-hmm. The Eagles lose again. It's like they want Dallas to take the division. So the Eagles lose another time. They lose to Seattle on Monday Night Football. What is happening with Philadelphia? We know Jalen Hurts had been sick. That could have played a role. But at the end of it all, Drew Lock and the Seattle Seahawks gutted out. And now we're in a place where Philadelphia is falling down the line, PJ. And so now...
It doesn't make any difference because Sam Sis is going to take the whole deal anyway.
So you're going with Tennessee.
Right.
I'm going with Seattle to beat Tennessee because if they can beat the Eagles, they could beat the Titans that have had a really poor season this season. But they're also a tough team to go up against. So I will give them credit where credit is due. But we'll see what happens here. I'm going to go ahead and take Seattle. I think Seattle is still a potential playoff team in my opinion this year. Detroit at Minnesota.
Detroit at Minnesota. Mm-hmm. Both of these guys are fighting for that division there. Minnesota's looking pretty good. I didn't think they'd looked as good after losing Kirk Cousins. But Jared Goff is playing so good and picking up his receivers. He's picking up everything. He's got a rifle for an arm. So I like Detroit here.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with the Detroit Lions in this one as well. Minnesota's 7-7. They're another team in that playoff hunt that's at 500 in the NFC. And if you thought that the AFC was confusing, the AFC has some distance between certain teams. The NFC, my goodness, you got losing record teams, you got teams with 6 wins, 5 wins, 7-7 teams vying for the playoffs. And some of those 7-7 teams are pretty darn dangerous, including Minnesota and Seattle. And yet I'm going to go with Detroit because the Detroit Lions, they're just so good. And I think they've beaten themselves at some points. Arguably, they could have been an undefeated team at this point this season. I think Detroit is in a great position. I had them winning their division, and I got them winning this week as well. Let's go Detroit. Washington at the New York Jets. The Commanders are a haphazard bunch that has no idea what's going on. It seems like they play close games, but they don't seem to win any games. They'll play you to a touchdown. They'll play you to a field goal. They'll play you to 8 points of differential. They're in most of these games, but they just don't ever really look that good. And the New York Jets, they are what I said they were. They are a Broadway show. They're just trying to get in the newspaper any way that they can. Aaron Rodgers is not coming back this season, folks, unless he was out of his freaking mind. The New York Jets are not a playoff team. Who comes out of this one alive?
Who cares?
And we move on. No, I'm just kidding. So let's pick the game. What do you got?
I'll take the Commanders, I guess, for whatever,
Yeah, PJ's going to take the Commanders. I'm going to take the New York Jets because the Commanders, as close as they get in every single game, they don't seem to win most of these games. I'm going to take the Jets. They're at home, and the Jets have a better defense, one thing that they can hang their hat on. Green Bay at Carolina. Green Bay has been the definition of an enigma. They make no sense. They're good one week. They're bad the next week. They've been changing. They keep the same colors every week, yet they seem like a chameleon. They've been in and out of this. Jordan Love's finally getting it, maybe not. The team's finally, maybe not. They went through injuries, though. A.J. Dillon's been down. Aaron Jones has been down. This team, Christian Watson's been down. This team has had good moments. And when I pick them, they lose, and when I don't pick them, they win. But Carolina, they're the worst team in football. They are the worst team in football.
Carolina won last week, but it's not going to make any difference, I think. Jordan Love has really proved to me that he can take over the Green Bay offense, and my bros up north are tepidly moving toward his direction. He still's got a lot to prove, but he should be able to win this game.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Green Bay Packers as well. I mean, Green Bay, this is a perfect game this season based on their MO that they would lose. But Carolina, not that great. However, Carolina's tickets are more expensive than the tickets to go to New York City. Get this, PJ, if you ever thought you'd hear this ever in the history of my show or in sports. You can go to New York City and go to MetLife Stadium and watch the Jets play for more than you would pay for parking.
Holy cow.
You can watch the Jets play for $17 a ticket when parking's like $25. So your parking will cost you more than your game ticket. You can go to New York City on Christmas Eve and buy a $17 ticket. I want gas prices to go down. If this is all going down, I want gas to go down. Supply and demand. Come on now.
Nosebleed section, I guarantee it.
$17 to see the Jets play.
Wow.
I'm going with Green Bay over Carolina. Cleveland at Houston. Cleveland, of course, does not have their starting quarterback. Houston is hoping that they will have their starting quarterback, who is out due to a concussion protocol. They did not have C.J. Stroud, and they're hoping to have C.J. Stroud back. He is questionable as of this moment in time, coming off the concussion. If C.J. Stroud is able to go, he'll be at home against the Cleveland Browns. What do you have, PJ?
This is a big determining factor. I mean, if he's not playing, I like the Browns.
Yeah.
If he is playing, I like the Texans because they are playing at home. So I'm gonna, even though he's a tough young man, I'm gonna pick him in the team because I think he'll be playing.
Yeah, I'm gonna pick Houston too. Do you know what I call this game? Cleveland at Houston. You know what this game is? The Deshaun Watson Bowl.
Oh.
I'm going to go with Houston as well. C.J. Stroud, I can't see him staying out 2 weeks, and he knows that he's got an opportunity to take the division as well. So I'm going to go with the Houston Texans. Next one up that we have here, Jacksonville at Tampa Bay, the battle for Florida. Jacksonville typically doesn't play any games in the state of Florida past 1 p.m. if it's on a Sunday. But on Christmas Eve, they will be playing at 4:05 p.m. Eastern time because apparently, if the deeper you go into Florida, the later it's got to be.
Yep.
What do you got? And the ship probably looks a little bit nicer at Raymond James Stadium at night.
I'm not going to, you heard me say earlier that I'm not a fair weather fan here. I'm going to stay with the Jaguars, even though Baker Mayfield really lit it up last week. My goodness. But if they don't get this guy, if they get this guy outside the pocket, he's extremely dangerous, just like any running quarterback that you like to say. I still like the Jags. I'm gonna stay with them.
I got to go with Tampa. Tampa's going to be at home. Tampa's got a ton of weapons. Tampa's offense is clicking. Baker's doing better than I had anticipated, and the Jacksonville Jaguars struggle to score. I'd see if they can lose. Now, granted, Baltimore's a good team, but if you can lose by almost 20 to Baltimore, I'm very concerned on how many points you can score against Tampa. I'm going to pick the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And Servassier Dennis and Sean Tucker, both ties to Central New York. Sean Tucker played for Syracuse. Servassier Dennis, shout out to CBA Syracuse. We both went to the same high school. Shout out to Servassier. God bless you, brother. God bless Sean. God bless the Jaguars and the Bucks. I hope it's a great game on Christmas Eve, but I'm very concerned for the Jaguars in this one. Arizona at Chicago, another game. I know Kyler Murray's playing. Chicago's been playing some pretty good ball. It's like they don't want the number one pick. Well, you know what it is? It's that they know that they can be better. Because no matter what they do, as long as Carolina's terrible, they get the number one pick because Carolina traded it to them. So Chicago's like, hey, we'll get the number one pick. Maybe we'll get the number 7. Maybe we'll get the number 2, the number 4. But Chicago doesn't have to worry about winning and losing the number one pick as long as Carolina plays the way that they play. And Chicago has won 2 of their last 4 games. They just lost to the Browns by a field goal. They beat the Vikings on the road, and they beat the Lions by 15 points at home in Chicago. I said, you always got to look out for those rivalry games no matter what the records are. Arizona at Chicago, who's got it?
I think that Chicago really is still in a quandary of what to do with Justin Fields. I just don't know if he's going to be the answer for them up there. You just can't keep passing mediocrity and running well and win games if you don't have a strong defense. I don't. This is a terrible game. Kyler Murray's another one of these little jitterbugs that runs all over the place. I'm going to like Chicago because it's at home. That's all.
Yeah. I'm going to pick Chicago because I think Chicago's got a little spark to them right now. So I'm going to pick Chicago. Arizona has not impressed me this season, I know. I like Josh Dobbs and the play of Josh Dobbs, but Arizona to me is just not a team that creates much for me as far as thinking that they're going to be on the winning side of things this season more often than not. I'm going to go, and by the way, folks, you can't see it on camera, but there are turkeys that are literally going back and forth outside.
They're fighting.
Yeah.
This is a grooming deal.
Yeah. So they're going back and forth right now, doing their thing. It looks like if you ever watched The Temptations, where they would sing and go one way and then they go the other way. That's exactly what it looks like. So PJ and I are watching the turkeys here, and hopefully you're having some turkey on Christmas. And we're gonna and it's gonna look like Turkey Day on Christmas Day because we're gonna get 3 games. We'll get to those in a second. I'm picking Chi-Town. Dallas at Miami, arguably one of the greatest games. Dallas is playing a regular season of playoff games that we all wish we could have. This could be a Super Bowl. Miami and Dallas could play in this year's Super Bowl. What do you have, PJ?
Well, if Tyreek Hill plays, Miami wins. If they don't, they got to rely on Waddle to do all the catching.
Yeah.
It could be a problem. Dak Prescott is talk about an enigma. He doesn't show up every week either.
No.
And I like Miami in this game mainly because they're playing at home, and it's gonna be nice and warm down there. So go to it there, Dolphins.
When the Dallas Cowboys lost to the Arizona Cardinals, it confused me. They came out, they beat the Giants, they beat the Jets, they lost to the Cardinals on the road. Then they came back and blew out the Patriots. Now, granted, the Patriots are a different team. Then they lost to the Niners, got blown out, came back and won 2 in a row against the LA Chargers and the LA Rams. Then they lost to the Eagles, and they won 5 in a row. Well, now they just got blown out by the Bills, and what does history tell you this year? that they bounce back quick and they get firing on offense. I like Miami, and I like a lot of the things Miami's doing, and I told you sitting in this seat preseason that Miami with a healthy Tua all season, God bless, could very well take the division. However, I'm saying the Cowboys are going to take this game. I'm going with the Dallas Cowboys to bounce back, because if I know anything about Dak this season, whenever he is Dakting like a fool, he comes right Dak. You see that? 2 Daks.
I like
in that. So we'll go back to the next game that we have here, PJ, and that is going to be our Sunday night football game, Patriots at the Broncos. The Broncos have had a strong defense. The Patriots, well, you've had to have a strong stomach to watch them play.
This is a terrible game. I watched Sean Payton yell at Russell Wilson this last week because of an offside he took. I mean, I don't know if Pete Carroll ever yelled at Russell Wilson, but I don't. Russell Wilson he's a good player. He's a good quarterback.
Yeah.
I don't know if you yell at Russell Wilson in the national audience.
Sean Payton likes to yell about multiple things. Apparently.
Well, I'm going to like Denver because of that, because they're going to come out. The Patriots, this will be an exhibition game.
Yeah. I got to go with Denver as well in this matchup. I think Denver is another sneaky team that you got to look out for out there this season. They are not done yet, and if Kansas City keeps faltering, who knows what can happen. I like Denver in this matchup. They're at home. They're playing the Patriots, and it's on NFL Network, so I hope you can watch it. Monday Night Football is not Monday Night Football. It's Monday early day, Monday mid-afternoon, and Monday night. On Christmas Day, my mom's going to want to kill me because I'm going to have the football games on all day long.
Right.
Las Vegas at Kansas City, New York Giants at Philadelphia, Baltimore at San Francisco, which could also be this year's Super Bowl. Let's get into it, PJ. The Raiders going up against the Kansas City. Their offense is just so not good this year. And I told you in early October when I was in New York City at New York Comic-Con and they played Denver the first time, I said, wow, this Kansas City offense, if they're going to struggle to get to 20 this year, they're going to have some trouble down the road when better teams start to watch these games, figure out what other teams have figured out, and they start beating Kansas City. Kansas City is not a strong team this year offensively, and they're playing the Raiders.
I disagree with you on that.
Well, they got Pat Mahomes and Travis Kelce. Who else?
What Mahomes did this last week is he hit 9 different receivers in the game. Now, I know he did that for a purpose. I did it for a reason. They're going to double team Kelce no matter where he is, especially on the goal line. And you just can't let Kelce run loose everywhere. And they proved that. So what did Mahomes do? He went to 8 other receivers. He had 9 receivers catch the ball. I like
formation, a 3-by-1 look.
I mean, it's definitely interesting. Rasheed Rice, who I covered, who was at SMU, covered him at SMU, and he had 9 targets, 9 balls thrown his way. He caught all 9 of them.
Right.
Rasheed Rice. So big-time shout-out to him. They didn't look good starting off against the Patriots, and that was very concerning to me. Kansas City's playing the Raiders. I don't trust the Raiders, so I will pick Kansas City, but I do not trust Kansas City's offense as much as I have in past seasons. Next one on Monday night, we have the Giants at the Eagles. The Giants, they keep rocking and rolling. And, I mean, I know they struggled this past week, but Tommy DeVito winning 3 of the last 4 games, and the Philadelphia Eagles they've been going in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
The Eagles are flying low. The Giants are flying high. What do we have?
Well, DeVito got sacked 7 times, and when you're a young quarterback like that, I mean, your ego's going to be crushed. So I think he's got some deer in the headlights kind of looks at him now. The Eagles won't let this one go by. They need to win this, and they need to win it big, so they will.
I'll tell you right now, the Philadelphia Eagles got to figure it out. They got to figure it out quick. Luckily for them, they have the Giants going up against them this week. I will also be taking Philadelphia in this matchup. PJ, our final game of the night, or of this week, Christmas night. could also be, like I said, this could be the Super Bowl game as well. This game will be Baltimore and San Francisco. Baltimore gets to play Sunday night, Monday night, so they get an extra day after having a Sunday night game. Baltimore Ravens traveling to San Francisco to face off against the 49ers Christmas night at 8:15 p.m. Eastern time. What do you got?
Well, all the men that are doing their Christmas duty thing with their family and everything, they're going to have a little party at night.
Yeah.
Because there were a lot of men watching this game. And Lamar Jackson, I still don't think of him as an elite quarterback. He's a very good quarterback. I don't think he throws as well as he should. And he certainly runs well, but that's no here or there. I think the 49ers are finally going to arrive where they are at the end of the year. They've been playing really good ball lately, and they can't afford to mess up here.
Yeah.
They got to win this game. They got to assert themselves because this could be what we're looking for. This could be the Super Bowl matchup that we could be looking for.
Yeah, so you're going to go with San Francisco?
I'm going with San Francisco.
San Francisco, PJ goes with San Fran, and I am going, I'm telling you this right now, Baltimore is a good team. Baltimore with Lamar Jackson, Miami with Tua, different world, both guys that are just so electric. Baltimore, to me, is a team that I think can go and make this a game. I think it's going to be a good game, a great game to go into on Monday night. However, coming out of it, I think it's all San Francisco. I'm going with the 49ers to win this matchup. The San Francisco 49ers looking not beautiful, not sexy. They're looking purty.
Purdy, that's right.
San Francisco 49ers, I am going with you to get this victory in the matchup that they have to round out Christmas week. And with that being said, folks, I want to thank you all for being a part of the broadcast here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. We are here with you Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. YouTube.com, Facebook.com, both /WakeUpCallDT, and on WakeUpCallDT.podbean.com. For Wednesday, December 20th, and Thursday, December 21st, our times are changing. They will be up on social media, and they're changing for my coverage of the Boca Raton Bowl from Boca Raton. You can find Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts. Player FM, Podbean, Podchaser.com, Podvine, Spotify, TuneIn, and YouTube. All you have to do is search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, or one word, Wake Up Call DT. Find us on your favorite audio and video podcasting platforms. Save us, follow us, hit the notification bell, subscribe for free, show us love, and once you become a follower and or subscriber, you will know when the next show gets added to the archives. Big time thanks to our incredible partners in Central and Upstate New York, Carvel DeWitt, where we have the DT Dolphin. Go and try my Sunday today. Don't let the cold weather fool you. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, the best place to put together a gift basket for this holiday season. The Wildcat Sports Pub, GG Cards and Breaks, Chick-fil-A Cicero, and Chick-fil-A Clay. K9 Camp Dog Daycare, PB&J's Lunchbox, Avicoli's, K9 Campground Dog Boarding, Pizza Man, Great Lakes Honda City, Mother's Cupboard, where you can get the Cuse McMother, My Sandwich, 7 days a week, bacon, egg, and cheese inside of 2 pieces of French toast. Nutrition Wave, North Star Nutrition, and, of course, the proud multimedia marketing partner exclusively of your Lemoyne College Dolphins. It is Fins Up every single month. The Dolphins have 2 specials coming to you tomorrow morning. Just because I'm changing our live time to Wednesday night tomorrow doesn't mean I'm still not giving you Dolphin time at the normal time of 9 a.m. I'm pulling double duty tomorrow as the women's basketball team will join me for a twofer. LaToya Baker and Kaya Good, after the second Division I win in the history of Lemoyne College's women's basketball program in their first season as a Division I program. They will be with me tomorrow morning. AD and DT and Dolphin Dive come to you all throughout the year, every single month, with Athletics Director Bob Beretta and myself, Dan Tortora, and Dolphin Dive with student athletes, coaches, administration, future Dolphins, and alumni. Find all of it by subscribing to youtube.com/WakeUpCallDT. Hit the notification bell, and of course, you can find them on the exclusive partners tab on WakeUpCallDT.com. For more information, go to LeMoyneDolphins.com, and as always, fins up. The Bryan and Stratton College Bobcats of Syracuse are exclusive multimedia marketing partners with Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Find the Bobcats every single month with a spotlight like they've never had before. Men's and women's basketball, men's and women's soccer, and baseball, as well as esports, coming to you on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora exclusively. Make sure you go to youtube.com/wakeupcalldt and click subscribe, hit the notification bell, and see the BSC Syracuse playlist. You can also find the Bobcats on the exclusive partners tab on wakeupcalldt.com. For more information, go to syracuse.bscbobcats.com. And, of course, go Bobcats. With that being said, here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, I want to thank you for being a part of the show, as always. I will see you in Boca Raton as we make history on Wednesday and Thursday, and I'll see you at the bowl game. PJ, they will not see you and I together until after Christmas, so I think we should wish them a very Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you all from the great state of Florida to wherever you are in the world. Find us on Facebook at Wake Up Call DT, X at Call DT, Instagram at Wake Up Call _DT, YouTube.com/Wake Up Call DT, WakeUpCallDT.com, and as we always tell you, God bless, no stress, do your best. We'll talk soon. Thanks to Christy, Mark, Pat, and Papa Joe.
That's me.
Merry Christmas, y'all.